WBSX, the cyber bully, broadcasting to you from the land of eternal white boy summer, where there are Jim Crow laws for all black pillars.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Astrolab. It is Wednesday Day. We are Wednesdaying on the off day because I skipped Monday. I am here in the middle of the morning. It has been a morning so far, but I am here. And if you're watching on Kick, if you are participating in the Kick live chat, if you are a subscribing member over on Kick, it's only $5 a month, then you can use the new MAGA cock emote. And boy, oh boy, is that going to get a workout today. We are MAGA cocking all over the place. The Supreme Court has ruled that the South shall rise again. So says Lord Breezy in the chat. Slutty Milk says that the Supreme Court rules you can't gerrymander in favor of black pillars anymore. That's right. Black pillars get no political representation. This has been stated by my favorite white person, Clarence Thomas. That one came in, just squeaked right in under the deadline here. So I'll have something brief to say on that, and then maybe get a little more into the analysis and stuff on that tomorrow. I'm going to try to push through this as fast as I can because I need to go back to bed. And there is so much. I was desperately scrambling, trying to whittle this down. So many things happening. All the winds have just come pouring out like a fire hose. We've been backed up for a little while, and I don't know, got a little bit of X-Lax in there or something like that. And oh boy, the winds have just come streaming in. Look at all those MAGA cocks on my screen. Reminder, please do pay your Patriot tax, your white pill prescription fees. The link is pinned in the chat. It is the Streamlabs link. So if you use the tips.kingpill.com link, you'll still get the money to me. You'll just have to let me know, or you'll have to hope that I remember to go check because the little automation dealio is not working still. I got to get to the end of the month, and it's going to reset my tokens because I'm not going to pay whatever absurd amount of money they want me to pay for way more than I would ever need. But the tip goal is set at $400. If we hit that, then we will do a random drawing, and someone will get 10% of the total take in the form of a digital gift card. There's no purchase necessary. Just go to forum.kingpill.com. Give me something to call you and a place to contact you, and you could be the lucky winner. I don't know if you listened to the end of the show yesterday, Caredwin, but you were the winner yesterday. So I know you're in the chat right now. I'll be hitting you up here as soon as I finish the show. Actually, I guess I could say now, do you want the same thing you got last time? You want your usual, or you can let me know. You can send me an email. Let me know if you want something else. But before we get into all the news stuff, I have a very important Very important life hack for you guys. You need to be sure that you are watering your foids regularly. Mild dehydration, this from the Journal of Nutrition. Mild dehydration affects mood in healthy young women. And Brandon Liu here says MD after his name, so you believe whatever he says. He says, this is great advice. In young women, just 1.36% dehydration makes tasks feel 58% harder, concentration 45% harder, fatigue 17% worse, and headaches approximately 2 times more likely. You need to be sure that you are regularly watering your foids. We have a case study here. Dr. Doom Guy! Good morning to you, sir. Thank you, my man, for the 1488. Good to see you, Dr. Doom Guy. A case study here from the People's Therapist. I read this study at 8:30 this morning and authoritatively announced, wife, you must drink your water. She immediately hits me with attitude about how she doesn't need me to manage her water intake like she's some kind of a child, and she can drink water just fine. Women are often grumpy in the morning. So true. So true, People's Therapist. As a man, I did not respond to her directly, but instead went over to her bedstand and picked up her copper water bottle. Empirical evidence defeats rhetoric. Empty. Sputtering, she said, yeah, I finished that last night. Then in a smaller voice, or maybe it was the day before. Indeed, I said, with paternal care. Thus I filled up her water bottle to set her up for success. To be a man is to procure and provide. You are ascendant and on. And the classic meme, the guy who wanted his trad wife and he wound up with his tard wife. It's funny because during the pre-show, Amy and I were tackling the ant problem in the front of the house, and she says, I'm grumpy this morning. And I said, well, I've got a great tip for you. Yeah, First Citizen, you must water and feed your foids. First Citizen in the Discord this morning, he did his husbandly duty and encouraged his foid to drink water. And she tried to get sassy with him, and he said, just do it. And she said, okay. The total husband jack victory for the day. Yeah, Mrs. Kingpill had a good excuse this morning. She was awakened by Eastwood throwing the blankets on her face and then jumping on top of her and screaming. And then he got mad at her when she got mad.
If you survive, you earn your freedom.
Thank you, Bobby Ballbags. Congratulations, Chimp Choker, for the gifted sub. Also, thank you to Pale Morning Dude for sending some kicks in earlier. Ben Shapiro on 2X here says, by the way, regarding the tap dancing from yesterday, you missed her doing one of our favorite tunes. Jeff Accordion, one of our great propagandists.
I'm late. What did I miss?
No, sir, you are just in time. You are just in time for this tap dancing chick doing one of our favorites. Hold on, I gotta get this opened. Instagram links are finicky. It opened over here. Let me pull it over here. And behold. Oh yeah. Thunderstruck by the MAGA cock. This is every Patriot this morning. Oh, I gotta say, this is, Ninja Spade says, women trying to address a topic directly. I gotta say, this is the type of, this is the sort of what is it, the Quirk Chungus influencer foid. This is the type that I can tolerate. First citizen said instead of the breakfast question, it'll be, how would you feel if you had not drank water this morning? That's the special limited edition. Speaking of water, Death Valley National Park is experiencing its first major super bloom in a decade as of March-April 2026, driven by record winter rainfall. That's hard to say. Record winter rainfall. 1.7 to 2.5 plus inches that transformed the desert landscape with vibrant carpets of yellow, pink, and purple flowers. Look at this. This is Donald Trump's America. Even the desert is in full bloom in the Great Trumpenreich. Just incredible scenes. Dawn is making the desert bloom. So true. Jeff Accordion says 1.7 to 2.5 inches. It's literally me. Speaking of absolute scenes, I showed this one for you guys yesterday. The new Southwest Airlines design. Look at this. Even the airplanes are in full bloom in Donald Trump's America. Oh, that's a sexy blue. Now, okay, my internet cred is suffering a little bit here because I missed this yesterday. Come on. Magoo did not. That's an R. This is real. Incredible. Incredible. Yes, Living Dead. Even the skies will proclaim total Patriot victory. And 1776R, also known as
the N-word.
a tremendous MAGA cock thrusting its way through the skies. Yes, it actually says that. It's real. You guys got to make sure you, even if you got to pay a little extra, come on, we got to patronize the patriotic companies. When they pander to us, we got to reward them. Your next flight, go out of your way to fly Southwest if you can. Speaking of Keno, the Trump State Department unveils a new passport design to commemorate America's 250th. It turns out that I really need to go get a new passport. I haven't had a passport in quite a while, actually. I don't even know where my old passport is. It's long expired by now, but Amy and I are definitely going to be getting passports. Patriot passport unlocked. Limited edition stamped for America 250. Incredible. Yesterday afternoon, I finished the show, I had to do some stuff, and then I was getting into bed, and I'm just laying there, just scrolling the timeline. It was glorious. It was incredible. It was one of those days where just every single post was some form of Keno. The scenes that came out of yesterday, you have Michael Tracy rampaging through the streets looking for someone to fight, even trying to fight a pit bull. You had all the Keno coming out of the White House, Trump with the bee, the new bee memes. We'll get to the bee here in just a minute. Just total and absolute scenes. And it's carried over into today. Incredible. I couldn't fall asleep because every time I was like, okay, I'm going to stop scrolling after this post. And then the next one was a banger too. Just incredible things. Look at this, an actual DOJ filing. And President Trump 100% wrote this part himself. Listen to this. This is the National Trust for Historic Preservation v. National Park Service. Defendants Rule 62.1 motion for an indicative ruling dissolving the court's injunction. The National Trust for Historic Preservation is a beautiful name, but even their name is fake, because when they add the words "in the United States" to the National Trust for Historic Preservation, it makes it sound like a governmental agency, which it is not. In fact, the United States refused to continue funding it in 2005 because they strongly disagreed with their mission and objectives. They are very bad for our country with the capital C. They stop many projects that are worthy and hurt many others. In this case, they are trying to stop one that is vital to our national security and the safety, capital S, of all presidents of the United States, both current and future, their families, staff, and cabinet members. They were asked by the United States military not to bring this suit because of the top secret nature of the important facility being built. They were shown detailed plans and specifications of this knitted, unified, and cohesive structure by top officers and leaders in both the military and Secret Service. But this did not deter them because they suffer from Trump derangement syndrome, commonly referred to as TDS, as noted by Democrat Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, and are represented by the lawyer for Barack Hussein Obama, Gregory Craig. Oh, my president is writing brief for the court now. The lower section of the building does not work without the upper section, and likewise, the upper section of the building does not work without the lower. It is all one highly integrated unit. As an example, one venting system, one electrical system, one plumbing system, one security system, one air conditioning and heating system, one elevator connector, and, very importantly, one structural steel and enforced concrete system, and more. Even the bulletproof windows and glass and the heavy steel, drone-proof roof protect what is below. With such a facility, it would have been impossible for an attack like that which took place last Saturday evening in D.C., when an attempted assassin armed with a shotgun, pistol, and knives charged through a security checkpoint at the Washington Hilton in an attempt to assassinate President Donald J. Trump, First Lady Melania Trump, and members of the president's cabinet and senior staff during the White House Correspondents' Dinner. The Secret Service fortunately neutralized the assassin before he could reach the ballroom. However, Saturday's narrow miss, which marks the third assassination attempt on President Trump since 2024, confirms what should have already been obvious. Presidents need a secure space for large events that currently does not exist in Washington, D.C., and this court's injunction stalling this project cannot defensively continue for the sake of the safety of President Trump, future presidents, and their families, cabinets, and staff. Defendants thus request that this court issue an indicative ruling under Rule 62.1 that it will dissolve this injunction. 3 assassination attempts, including the attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania, where an assassin's bullet hit the president's ear, is enough. There is absolutely no argument that a woman walking her dog in the vicinity of the White House has standing to stop such a desperately needed structure for the people of the United States of America, as it will provide presidents, current and future, a secure space to do their jobs. The day after this assassination attempt, defendants asked the trust whether they oppose this motion and still seek to stop this project by continuing their dangerous lawsuit. The trust refused to heed their request and responded that it opposes this motion. President Trump, on top of everything else he is doing, is also demonstrating, yes, living dead, that he is a prestigious legal scholar. And he is writing DOJ filings. Maybe there's a competence of the DOJ joke in here. Kevin Warsh has been approved to Fed chair by the Senate Banking Committee, 13-11. Holy crap! Everything is happening. Oh, man. Okay, I've got weeks of shows already lined up now. Look at this yesterday. The Rose Garden is lined with band members in period outfits as they await King Charles III and President Trump to walk the red carpet to the Oval Office. Look at these scenes.
It won't take long to get that right.
Hey there, Chucky boy. This bringing back any memories for you? Tom Sauer said, a powerful mutual, by the way, said, Trump dressed our boys in revolutionary patriot garb to remind Charles what happened 250 years ago. Frame mogging the King of England in front of the entire world. Nobody does it better. The Office of the First Lady tweeted this. Look at the USA pins, or USA buttons. just generational scenes. Look at him. How does he do it? Just put it straight into the Louvre. It's incredible. Melania's face, the king's face. Huh? Oh my God. And there, my president, pausing and contemplating the beauty and the simplicity of God's great universe. How many of these has he had? Dozens. There's got to be dozens of these. One single person, no normal person could accumulate such a corpus of generational photographs like my president. How does he do it? Indeed, Geiger Capital. This was the first thing I saw when I finished. I didn't even know what was going on. When I opened X yesterday after the show, this was the very first thing I saw. Mr. President, we found a cool bug outside. Literally me when I hear about a cool bug outside. In medieval lore, animals paying homage to the rightful monarch of the land is commonplace. Unicorns, lions, etc. will bow to kings and queens. Bees are also synonymous with royal power. When a British monarch dies, the royal beekeeper must inform the hives that they serve a new master. Rather than Charles III, perhaps the royal bees are choosing the rightful heir to the Stuart dynasty. We just learned today President Trump is a descendant of James II of Scotland. The rightful heir. The true and rightful king. That's why I titled it today, Who's the True King of the Anglosphere? We're going to get into that a little bit more. There's another great take here. Spencer Clavin, I read one from him yesterday. This faggot can write, man. Regarding the photo, he said, every time Trump survives an assassination attempt, he enters a kind of Zen fugue state, where he transcends his usual belligerence and radiates unearthly serenity. I wasn't worried, he said after this last one. I understand life. We live in a crazy world. In this photo, he looks like the speaker of Yeats's Lake Isle of Innisfree, gazing dreamily into the respite that awaits him when at last his labor on this earth is done. 9 bean rows will I have there, a hive for the honeybee, and live alone in the bee-loud glade. This usually lasts about a week before he goes back to thundering obscenities at his enemies and wishing hellfire upon them at the merest provocation. Get yourself a president that can do both. Get yourself a president that periodically enters a Zen fugue state where he transcends his usual belligerence and radiates unearthly serenity, and then can also go back to thundering obscenities at his enemies and wishing hellfire upon them at the merest provocation. How, I ask again, how is this man real? How can you see this sort of thing over and over and over again and somehow come to doubt the providence of the Lord? The wonders of the natural world present themselves to the man in perfect harmony with nature. The juxtaposition of him enjoying a serene moment with the bee and making sure he appreciates all that nature has to offer. Copping a quick feel on the honey. He's got the bee and he's got the honey. I wonder if he has to remind Melania to drink water. Just the entire timeline was wall to wall with incredible things. Now, there was a couple of major speeches yesterday. Trump had his, and King Charles had his. So we're going to juxtapose a couple of clips from them. I don't have time to go through and really try to analyze and break down all of them. But there's some key takeaways that I want to draw here. First of all, here is the king addressing Congress. Trump said that he wished he could be there, but he was told that formalities, that it's against protocol for him to be there when the king is addressing Congress.
The immediate aftermath of 9/11, when NATO invoked Article 5 for the first time, and the United Nations Security Council was united in the face of terror, we answered the call together, as our people have done so for more than a century, shoulder to shoulder, through 2 world wars, the Cold War, Afghanistan, and moments that have defined our shared security. Today, Mr. Speaker, that same unyielding resolve is needed for the defense of Ukraine and her most courageous people.
Look at these craven faggots. That is the most workout that Nancy Pelosi has gotten in months. Shadow of Ezra says King Charles is telling the U.S. government to prepare for a war with Russia by getting ready to defend Ukraine and, quote, her most courageous people. He reminds Congress that they fought together through 2 world wars, the Cold War and Afghanistan. The entire Congress clapped. Now, juxtapose this with these clips from the president. Or might I say, the true king?
Here in the shadows of monuments to George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, honoring the British king might seem an ironic beginning to our celebration of 250 years of American independence. But in fact, no tribute could be more appropriate. Long before Americans had a nation or a constitution, we first had a culture, a character, and a creed. Before we ever proclaimed our independence, Americans carried within us the rarest of gifts, moral courage, and it came from a small but mighty kingdom from across the sea.
So before we had a constitution, we had a character, a culture, and a creed. Where the propositional nation folks at? The U.S. president, the true king of the Anglosphere. I'm giving away my, I'm showing my cards early. The true king of the Anglosphere is declaring that America is not a propositional nation. Before we even had the baseline of the proposition, we already had a culture, a character, and a creed.
For nearly 2 centuries before the revolution, this land was settled and forged by men, women, who bore in their souls the blood and noble spirit of the British. Here on a wild and untamed continent, they set loose the ancient English love of liberty and the Great Britain's distinctive sense of glory, destiny, and pride. And that's
the English love of liberty.
What it is: glory, destiny, and pride.
The glory and destiny and pride of Britain.
The American patriots who pledged their lives to independence in 1776 were the heirs to this majestic inheritance. Their veins ran with Anglo-Saxon courage. Their hearts beat with an English faith in
Anglo-Saxon courage. Their hearts beat with an English faith. I have some ideas about who wrote this speech. Whoever it was, they are dialed in.
Standing firm for what is right, good, and true. In recent years, we've often heard it said that America is merely an idea, but the cause of freedom did not simply appear as an intellectual invention of 1776. The American founding was the culmination of hundreds of years of thought, struggle, sweat, blood, and sacrifice on both sides of the Atlantic. Fate drew a long arc from the meadow at Runnymede to the streets of Philadelphia that ran through the lives of people born and bred on the British.
From the meadow of Runnymede to the streets of Philadelphia. That's the Magna Carta to the Constitution. You see the arc that's being traced here. That there's the United States and Britain are indelibly linked through history, and yet there's also a distinction between them. America is not a propositional nation. America is an inheritor of the English tradition. America is the descendant coming into its own, paying homage, respect to its forebearer, but is also something new and different and above and beyond its forebearer.
British code that no man should be denied either justice or right. American patriots today can sing "My Country 'Tis of Thee, Sweet Land of Liberty," only because our colonial ancestors first sang "God Save the King."
That line right there. Where was it? Oh, it's not quoted here. It was that we can sing My Country 'Tis of Thee because our ancestors sang God Save the King. It's the same song, the exact same tune. We took God Save the King and we rewrote it. Today, America, we live under this new time. We took that sacred hymn and we rewrote it for America. Quite literally, replaced that history with our history. And then there's this quote. Actually, this was the same. This is a segment from it, so I won't play the video. I just wanted to get this from. First of all, that the Department of State signaled, cropped out this one particular point. Marco Rubio's State Department wanted to highlight this specific point. And Walter Whitepill says, this is the first time a politician has talked publicly and positively about my race in my lifetime. And the State Department wants to highlight this 22-second clip.
The American patriots who pledged their lives to independence in 1776 were the heirs to this majestic inheritance. Their veins ran with Anglo-Saxon courage. Their hearts beat with an English faith in standing firm for what is right, good, and true.
Now, why would the State Department want to highlight that particular part? That American patriots are those who are heirs to this majestic inheritance, their veins running with Anglo-Saxon courage, their hearts beating with an English faith. Here is another clip. This is from a separate speech.
From English towns and Scottish hills, from Welsh mountains and Irish villages, a people unique in history sailed across the mighty Atlantic to settle and civilize this continent in the name of God, King and country. So beautiful. They called it New England and meant that very, very literally. The first Americans.
They called it New England and meant that very, very literally. And like, Living Dead says black pillars will never acknowledge how insanely huge this is. And that right there is so indicative of the fact that black pilling is a spiritual state of being. It is people becoming numb to the spiritual realities around them. They meant that very literally. This is New England. That's Old England. This is New England. What does he mean by this?
Saw themselves as free men carrying the forward and central liberties and ancient rights of the Anglo-Saxons into this new and beautiful world. In the eyes of
listen to that again.
And central liberties and ancient rights of the Anglo-Saxons into this new and beautiful world.
The central liberties and ancient rights of the Anglo-Saxons into this world.
In the eyes of America's founders, our war of independence was fought not to reject this heritage, but to reclaim it and perfect it.
To reclaim it and perfect it. So the king is there. He's like, hey, look at how great everything is. Look how wonderfully bound together we are. You guys need to come finance our war over here that we care about and you don't. That's in our interest and not yours. Meanwhile, the president is saying, America's destiny is to reclaim the heritage that England is abandoning. We're going to reclaim that. We are going to take the mantle upon ourselves now. You go to the retirement home. We are taking it upon ourselves now. Now is our time to shine. We are going to claim that mantle and we're going to perfect it.
As the founding father, George Mason, wrote, we claim nothing but the liberty and privileges of Englishmen in the same degree as we had still continued among our brethren when we were in Great Britain.
Right nationalist said, if it isn't obvious, this is a direct repudiation of the notion of America as an idea. This is Albion's seed, America as the fulfillment of the Anglo-Saxon project. Don't tell me you ever thought you'd hear an American president say this in your lifetime. You'd be a liar. So true. So true. This is why I say, Who is the true king of the Anglosphere? We know who has been the king. The White House is laying it on pretty thick here. Two kings. Two kings indeed. This is being framed up subtly, or perhaps not so subtly with those for eyes to see. This is being framed up as a passing of the mantle. King Charles doesn't necessarily seem to see it that way, but they have pulled them in, regardless of what King Charles thinks. They have pulled them in. This is the changing of the guard. This is the passing of the mantle. This is the old king. This is the new king. This is not just trolling. See, people look at this and they're like, oh, just like social media trolling or whatever. Again, if you look at this and you see this as just social media trolling, you are spiritually dead. You're spiritually numb. Your mind has been melted by excessive consumption of black pills. This is far more than just social media trolling. This is a strong diplomatic message. Now, I'm going to make what may seem like sort of a hard turn, but these are connected. Marco Rubio, speaking about Iran.
Do you believe that Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, is alive?
Well, we have indications that he is. Obviously, they claim that he is. We don't have evidence that he's not.
Very interesting. We have indications that he is. We don't have evidence that he's not alive. That's a carefully worded statement there.
But I think the unresolved questions here are, does he have the same credibility as his father did? You know, we know that for many, many years, at least I know that for...
Does he have the same credibility as his father? So whether or not he is alive, can he even lay valid claim to the throne?
Many years there's been internal debates in Iran about succession and whether it should be, hereditary based. Should it be this, that there are a lot that are resistant to that? Does he have the clerical credentials to actually act as supreme leader? Is he actually making the decisions, or is there somebody standing in his stead who's basically controlling 90% of it?
If I played that, let me play that last little bit again. And in your mind, as you're listening to this, think of this as if it was being like it's being said in the particular about Mojtaba, but then universalize that particular, let's say.
Many years there's been internal debates in Iran about succession and whether it should be, hereditary based. Should it be this, that there are a lot that are resistant to that? Does he have the clerical credentials to actually act as supreme leader? Is he actually making the decisions, or
does he actually have the credentials? Is he actually making the decisions? Is he truly the rightful claimant to the throne?
There's somebody standing in his stead who's basically controlling 90% of it.
Isn't that fascinating? You know, Joaquin Flores, who I'm going to shout out here in just a moment, Joaquin Flores has made this point many, many times already about how frequently when Trump talks about the Israel-Iran issue, he will say things that sound like they're about Iran, or he'll even say that this is about Iran, but from a particular perspective, it's like word for word describing the situation in Israel. I think what this shows is this is a peek into the mind of how American foreign diplomacy is being conducted under the Trump administration. The sorts of things that they're considering, that they're talking about as they're redrawing the maps of the world. They're calling into question things like, this is like a liberal, post-war liberal order sort of thing here, where it's like the borders just exist and everything just needs to stay exactly as it is, and we can't have changes unless, of course, it's like a color revolution that's being done. We're not changing anything. We're trying to keep things the way that they were. Everything has to just be locked in place. We have to have this stasis. It's the end of history. There's this irony of having the progressives who also believe it's the end of history. How do you reconcile those things? Well, perhaps that's why everything's so fucking schizophrenic. Because we've been governed by people who see themselves as progressives, whose responsibility it is to preserve the end of history. Now, regarding the Israel situation, directly here. A couple of things that I posted these or shared them into the King Pilled Telegram channel. If you go to, just look for King Pilled on Telegram or t.me/King Pilled. I don't share stuff in there very often, but in this case, I wanted to make sure that I had this bookmarked. There's a lot of people who focus all of their attention on the United States relationship to Israel, who are obsessed with Israel. And yet, as was indicated over and over again yesterday in the debate reaction, the Andrew Wilson, Owen Schroyer debate, as I pointed out over and over again, Owen doesn't know what he's talking about. He has like headlines. He has breaking slop headlines or tweets that he's internalized and then just fashioned the rest of the worldview around that, just kind of like drawing connections and insinuations, and he's Charlie Day up on the board with the yarn stretched back and forth between all of these different things. I've noticed that virtually every single person I see on my timeline, and maybe this is a condemnation of my timeline, but virtually every single person I see opining regularly about the Israeli relationship to American politics has nothing to say whatsoever about what's going on in Israeli politics right now. Joaquin has pointed this out, and he's not the only person, but while I'm talking about him, Joaquin has pointed this out numerous times, that Trump goes out of his way to regularly remind Bibi Netanyahu that he has this big legal case being built against him. And he frames it as, oh, my poor Bibi, this is so unjust. Look, they're doing the same thing to you that they did to me. But if it wasn't for Trump bringing that up all the time, people wouldn't be thinking about it. This is actually like a mob boss tactic for holding this over your head. Motherfucker, I own you. I'm the only reason. Me accommodating some of your demands is the only thing that's keeping you where you are. But actually, he's leading him down this primrose path to ultimate destruction. Bibi's coalition is exceedingly fragile and becoming more and more so. Trump is more popular in Israel than Bibi is. And here you have an Israeli opposition coalition forming with former Prime Ministers Naftali Bennett and Yair Lapid, merging their parties. Now, both of these guys are radical, they're far-right Zionists. They are. They use all of the rhetoric of the far-right Zionists. But they're now merging their parties, and they're calling this initiative a first step in process of repairing the state of Israel ahead of the upcoming elections. The joint political party will be led by Bennett. And Joaquin Flores notes here, so Netanyahu could be toast if these two far-right Zionists are joining forces against Bibi. He's also noted how in their public statements, they use all the same like genocidal rhetoric and everything, but they get real political when people start trying to pin him down on particular policies. And they say things like, well, we need to be more realistic about our approach to what's going on in Gaza. The entire Middle East is being remade right now. And Israel is being forced to integrate with all of their neighbors. They're being forced. So there's two directions on this. On one hand, their neighbors have to recognize them as an actual legitimate state. But in order for their neighbors to recognize them as a legitimate state, they're going to have to start acting like a legitimate state. And there are a lot of powerful Israeli interests that are being lured with promises of exorbitant wealth through the development and establishment of the Middle East as something like a large Singapore, kind of like this big tech and trading hub. In order for it to be dependable and reliable as a like center of the trading world hub, you need to break this perpetual tension between Iran and Israel. The only thing that's been keeping Bibi out of jail is the prosecution of this Iran war. But now his ostensible allies are beginning to form a coalition that ostensibly stands to oppose him. Now, you could look at this in a number of different ways, and I think that is valid to look at this in a number of different ways because, none of these things break off as cleanly as people want them to. Are they forming a coalition to serve as like a controlled opposition so that Bibi can be like, oh, look at that, I gave up power, I'm stepping down, but it's my allies, it's my buddies who are taking over. Perhaps. And maybe that's why you actually get Bibi to back down. And Bibi goes off and sails off into the sunset and is never heard from again. And Israel is now incorporated into the broader world, and they renounce all of their past sins, and they get forcibly diplomatically integrated. The same thing is happening with Iran. They're keeping a lot of the same rhetoric alive. They're thumping their chests and they're doing their whole thing, but under the surface, there's a lot of normalization that's happening. Now, right on the heels of this, Bennett said, on the first day after the government is formed, we will establish a state inquiry committee on October 7th. So again, this provokes the question. Is this Bibi's allies doing like a Warren Commission sort of thing where we're going to form an investigation and it's actually a cover-up exercise? Well, either way, the very premise of forming that commission implies that a commission needs to be formed because this is in question. So this would be a substantial political concession by the Bibi wing. And then there's this. An ex-Mossad deputy. So there's this letter that all the past Mossad and Shin Bet leaders have all signed a letter together saying that Bibi is completely out to lunch. The guy's a madman and he's threatening the safety and security of Israel. All the past Mossad and Shin Bet leaders. This ex-Mossad deputy says this: war on Iran has strategically failed. Regime change, nuclear program, Hormuz, all failed. I'll play the video here so you guys can see, those of you who want to read the captions. I apologize for making you guys listen to this language.
אודי, 40 יום נמשכה מלחמה עצימה של ארצות הברית וישראל מול איראן, ואיראן עדיין...
So the war between the U.S., Israel, and Iran has lasted for 40 days, and Iran has not yet been defeated.
לא הוכרעה. האם היה משהו שאפשר היה לעשות טוב יותר כדי להגיע להכרעה מהירה?
Was there anything that could have been done differently to reach a quicker decision?
עכשיו מסתכלים על היעדים האסטרטגיים. אתה מסתכל, בין אם זה...
So he says, when we look at the strategic objectives, and that's where he goes through and he lists off all of them, he says it's a failure.
המשטר, בין אם זה הגרעין, החומר הגרעיני שנשאר שם. וצמחה לה גם במהלך המלחמה לפתע סוגיית ההורמוז. אתה אומר, ברובד האסטרטגי, לפחות בינתיים, זה נכשל. זה נכשל.
כי אין יותר...
So at least for now, this has failed. And he repeats it. It has failed. And she said, because there's no white flag.
דגל לבן? אולי מופרך ומוגזם לצפות לזה?
And then she says, is it exaggerated to expect that white flag?
האירוע הזה של דגל לבן מול ה...
The idea of a right flag vis-a-vis the regimes and the organizations with which we are currently dealing does not exist. It's a different kind of war. So Joaquin says, receipts. So the man, he makes his calls and then he posts his receipts. He says, former Mossad deputies and chiefs are unanimously against Netanyahu's failed neocon strategies, as we have said, which the U.S. under Trump has also fortunately and intelligently left behind. As I explained, institutions learn by doing, not by theories or projections. Now we have the data. Iran cannot be destroyed. All of the stakeholders have to be shown by facts. This conflict was designed to reduce the future possibility of real conflict. This is the level of strategic geopolitical game that Trump has been on. And all of the people, I don't see anybody who spends all of their time talking about Israel and Israel's effect on American politics. I don't see any of them talking about what's actually happening in Israel right now. Now here's a spicy boy for you. This is another one that you'll have to read. So if you're just listening right now, I encourage you to open this up and read. This is a familiar meme format, but suddenly it's being reappropriated. White people are being replaced in Israel. Are you prepared for this? Are you prepared for this twist in the Hebraic relations, the intra-Hebraic relations? Israel must become European again. The Jews are doing great replacement theory. Are you guys ready for this one? Are you guys ready for we must rescue Israel for the Anglosphere? Now, unironically, I do believe this is Donald Trump's perspective by and large. I've said before that I think Donald Trump's he sees it as his responsibility to protect Israel and save Israel from the lunatic genocidal Zionists. That he sees Israel as a valid. You can think of Israel as you could say Israel is a like a stand-in or sort of like a metonym kind of for the Greater Israel Project. You could say Israel is a stand-in for the current Israeli government. You could say Israel is a stand-in for the geographic region. Or you could say Israel is a stand-in for like the people who live in Israel. But what's happening with the demographics in Israel right now is the secular Jews, the largely European, the Jews, the so-called Jews of European stock, their birth rates are cratering. They're like Democrats in the United States. Secularized, degenerate, their birth rates are cratering. The ones whose birth rates are not are the ultra-Orthodox, like the most deranged mouth breather types that just crank babies out like crazy, leech off of the welfare state, and many of whom are radically anti-Zionist. Israel as a political entity is decaying into like basically every other Middle Eastern nation, which is a mishmash of different genetic backgrounds all jammed together with people trying to leech off of the teat. Are you prepared for needing to rescue Israel for the sake of Europe? But here's the thing, like, when people talk about Israel or the interests associated with Israel, they paint with this just super broad brush, which is, I can understand this as like a rhetorical device, because you see this as like this urgent thing that really has to be addressed, because there are legitimately elements within and around and supporting and associated with the Israeli project that are the fucking Antichrist. They are genocidal lunatics. But there are also substantial, powerful, wealthy interests who are not. Who are motivated by, I don't know, making money, by, or just like, you know, they're from Israel, they have an association with Israel, they love Israel, it's the Holy Land. Treating every single person who has some sort of positive affection toward or affiliation with Israel as equivalent with genocidal Zionist mania. It's not that it's wrong, it's that it's incorrect. I'm not making a moral case here, I'm making a pragmatic strategic case. And everyone has these just like thought-terminating cliches. No more money to Israel, or I don't care what's happening in the Middle East. You know, these are childish statements to make. This is a childish opinion to have. That's not how global geopolitics works. Never in a million years are you ever going to have an American government that has no interest whatsoever in Israel, nor should you, given the geostrategic significance of Israel. And furthermore, given the fact that it actually is the place where Christ walked. We absolutely need to have good terms with whatever the body is that controls access to and passage in and around that geographic region. 100%, a Christian nation needs to be on good terms with them. Those terms must be dictated to them. That's where the problem has been. So the solution here is not sever relations with Israel. The solution here is force out the bad ones. Or force out the worse ones. Again, we don't have like this neutral third party option where we can say, oh, there'd be only good people there. Well, if we don't have only good people there, then we just opt out and just like wipe that from our mind and pretend it doesn't exist. The world is going to go on. People are going to live where Israel is. There is going to be some form of government where Israel is. And if that government is insane and collapsing and degrading and falling apart and unstable, that's going to be bad for everyone around them, which is going to radiate out and be bad for everyone else. The United States government is going to have a relationship with Israel. The question is, what is going to be the nature of that relationship, and what is the trajectory right now? And the trajectory right now is that the genocidal Zionist Greater Israel Project types are being elbowed out by the interests who don't see a future for something like that. They're not radically ideologically committed to it. See, here's where the living in a time where commitment to grand spiritual ideas is at a minimum can sometimes be a feature. It's not just a bug. Sometimes it's a feature because sometimes those grand ideological spiritual commitments are insane and degenerate and anti-Christic. And so the people who are radically committed to the Zionist cause are dying off. Zionism is on its deathbed. One of the few things that is preserving Zionism is the insane, hostile, relentless opposition to it. That's a thing that it uses to keep itself alive. As the boomers die off, so will support for the Zionist cause. I'm not saying it's going away tomorrow, but I'm saying it's losing ground. It's not gaining ground. Yeah, Bennis Phylactery quote tweeted that video and said, hadn't heard about this, so I did a little digging on the Israeli government, and let's just say a certain tribe is overrepresented. You're telling me this for the first time. Then here's this from Scott Bessett. Note a significant phrase that he uses here.
Yeah, I think that's not a correct characterization. Yesterday, we announced Operation Economic Fury, and we, for over a year, we have had maximum pressure on the Iranians, both on blocking payments into the Iranian state and going after the accounts of the IRGC. One of what may prove to be fatal mistakes that the Iranians made was bombing their GCC neighbors, and who are now willing to be much more transparent in terms of the funds or do a deeper dive in investigating the funds that are held within their banking systems. So we have pushed out to them the request that we want to freeze more funds of the leadership of the IRGC and any members of Iranian leadership. The other thing that we have done is we have told countries that if you are buying Iranian oil, that if Iranian money is sitting in your banks, we are now willing to apply secondary sanctions, which is a very stern measure, and the Iranians should know that this is going to be the financial equivalent of what we saw in the kinetic activities.
Is this an example of the financial equivalent of what we saw in the kinetic activities? So, what was that phrase? The shadow banking system, the Iranian Islamic regime's shadow banking system. What do we know about the banking system that backstops the Iranian Islamic regime. I don't know how well you guys could hear that. The volume was low and I couldn't get it any higher, but what he said was that Iran's shadow banking system serves as a critical financial lifeline for its armed forces, enabling activities that disrupt global trade and fuel violence across the Middle East. Illicit funds funneled through this network support the regime's ongoing terrorist operations, posing a direct threat to U.S. personnel, regional allies, and the global economy. Financial institutions are on notice. Any institution that facilitates or engages with these networks is at risk of severe consequences. So if you are a bank in the region, and he said one of the things that the Iranians, he characterizes this as one of the mistakes that the Iranians made was bombing their GCC neighbors. And he says now all their GCC neighbors are like, hey, how can we help? How can we facilitate what's happening here? Let's open up all of our financial documents. We're going to compel all the financial institutions in our nations. We are going to compel them to open up their financial documents and reveal where all these funds are going. I shouldn't have to tell you who this is a direct attack on. It's not Iran. It's not Israel. It's not the Gulf states. I haven't even been able to get into the OPEC stuff with UAE yet. I need to inform myself a little bit more on that. So I've got some stuff maybe tomorrow or the following lab that we'll get into that. But UAE leaving OPEC is a big part of all of this. Iran's shadow banking network. Interesting, this is happening right as the king is visiting the United States. Here's one that you guys, the loyal Labians, you are fully prepared for this. But some others perhaps are not yet. Fugitive Caesar, our great Truster poster, he really, really got earned himself some hate for this one. He says, Israel and Jews are going to see their popularity improve under the coming months. Israel did an excellent job fighting alongside America in the Iran war, which nobody is giving them credit for. Number one, the Middle East will stabilize. Number two, racial discrimination against whites will decrease. There are two main sources of resentment towards Jews. One is that the Middle East is a constant source of wars, quagmires, and foreign lobbying. The other is that domestically, whites suffer vicious racial persecution, but for decades, Jews enjoyed an aristocratic exemption. The thing that is not solved in America, which we need to keep pushing on ferociously every day, is that talented, hardworking young white men continue to suffer vicious racial persecution at every level of economy, academia, and society. DEI has not been solved. Everyone who is hired under affirmative action, DEI since 1970, is still in a management position blocking entry-level hires. Indians are still engaging in nepotism. Women in HR are still rejecting white male applicants without bothering to read them. This is not even close to being solved. We have an entire generation of smart, hardworking young men locked out of careers, who can't afford to own homes, who can't get married and start families, who lost a decade of career advancement and capital accumulation. And he says a lot of very angry people agreeing with everything I said, except for the prediction that life is getting better. Isn't that notable? Isn't that notable? You can say all of these things are true, and also life is getting better. And people will agree with all of that and say, no, life is getting worse. All right. You could just religiously, dogmatically devote yourself to the idea that life is perpetually getting worse. But that's the definition of antisocial behavior. You must be blockaded from popular society. Your life must get worse if you are going to devote yourself to that cause. It becomes self-fulfilling. Yes, if you go around constantly proclaiming that life is getting worse and it can only ever get worse, then your life is going to get worse. And it ought to. Twitter is a text-based app where nobody bothers to read. He says, wow, a lot of people agreeing with the statement, the Middle East is a constant source of wars, quagmires, and foreign lobbying. And Matt Forney says he's right. America investing in Israel from the 80s forward was the geopolitical equivalent of buying Bitcoin in 2010 and hodling. But what do we get out of this alliance? I don't know, man. Peace in the Middle East and total American energy dominance seems like a pretty good exchange. No kidding, eh? Imagine if you frame this up as Israel has been a colony of the old world. And the behavior and the role that Israel has played was a direct product of that old world. But what we're watching over the past few decades is the ultimate colonization of Israel by the New World. Israel is going to be directed and run by the New World for the sake of the New World. And the people who live in Israel will be rewarded handsomely for acting like a normal fucking country. Raymond Harmon here in the chat, he says, where did that go? It jumped away from me. He said, can't fix that social domain problem until you fix or remove laws currently on the books. One is downstream currently. Yes. It doesn't have to be for the foreseeable future. He said, what I was more curious about the Israel-U.S. alliance, which we learned about with the opening salvo against Iran, was the intel network. Right, that's a good thought as well. First Citizen says, only took 50 fucking years, but better late than never. And like, you got to realize, in the grand scheme of things, 50 years is a blink of an eye. For these types of transitions, for these types of shifts in power, they happen slowly and then all at once. But in order for them to reach that all at once, they have to go through a long period of moving slowly. Sort of like things going through, I don't know, the DOJ, which we'll talk about here in just a minute. Speaking of slowly and then all at once. Tyler says, hot take, but I don't think our focus should be continuously pushing ourselves as victims. That is a banger. That is, if I didn't have the tip link pinned in there, I would be pinning that one. Pinning that is a chat of the day. Our focus should not be continuously pushing ourselves as victims. Slender Milk says, Trump made Israel fight. Also, they took disproportionate casualties if you look at ours versus Israel's military size. Right, this is like, we were talking about this yesterday. People just say, like, regime change war, or wars in the Middle East, or whatever, and it just is like this big, broad category that involves every single conceivable level of operation or involvement, when clearly there's a substantial difference. In the past, it was American blood and treasure being poured downrange for no benefit for America and for benefits for Israel, at least in Israel's perspective. Now, it's Israel blood and treasure being sacrificed substantially for Israel's pursuit of their ends, while America is sacrificing a minimal, a drop in the bucket, a tiny amount. That's not to diminish those lives. Of course, every life is sacred, but we're not going to morally grandstand here. Militaries exist for a reason. People volunteer to join militaries for a reason. Military operations are going to be conducted, and people are going to die in the course of military operations. They have to be judged not according to some sort of hypothetical, idealistic utopia where things just magically happen and militaries are never used, and when they are, there's no damage. You have to compare it to what the alternative was. The alternative was there were massive stockpiles of armaments and intelligence networks and stuff that were being set up to create a massive conflagration. And instead, what we're getting is very minimal, relatively speaking, very minimal military engagement. I saw something, it was $25 billion. Dude, the United States shits out $25 billion on a Tuesday. $25 billion is nothing whatsoever. So here, Israel's the one who's been eating missiles. Israel is the one who has been directly implicated in all of this, while it's been limited, targeted military strikes from the perspective of the United States. And this is not just, install some sort of favorable regime to Israel, because right now, Israel's fucking caterwauling because they're not getting that. Though the Israeli influences that wanted the complete overthrow of the Iranian regime, and they wanted to see Iran glassed, they got had for suckers. They were used. Here, please absorb some missiles for us so that we can attain our geopolitical ends. All right, now in a perhaps a related matter. Sergey Brin's girlfriend has shown off photos to friends of him wearing a red MAGA hat. Sergey Brin moves to the right with a MAGA girlfriend by his side. This from the New York Times. Talking about elite defection? Remember when we talked about the PayPal mafia? Well, here we go. Here's an update. Sergey Brin moves to the right with a MAGA girlfriend by his side. After once backing liberal causes, the Google co-founder has praised President Trump, donated to Republicans, and spent $57 million to try to block a California billionaire tax. We haven't talked a lot about this on here, about the California billionaire tax, but if you've been following the All In podcast or David Sachs or Chamath Palihapitiya, you've heard about this stuff. They are torqued about it. And the California apparatus that's trying to push through this billionaire tax is like the primary power center within what's left of the husk of the DNC. It was a holiday party at a Crypto Titans estate in Marin County, and Sergey Brin had a bone to pick with Gavin Newsom. Mr. Brin, a Google co-founder and one of the world's richest people, is a longtime friend of Mr. Newsom, the California governor. Both men attended each other's weddings, but now Mr. Brin pulled Mr. Newsom aside to a different part of the property for a serious talk. Mr. Brin told Mr. Newsom that he could not stand the state's proposed billionaire tax. They were soon joined by Mr. Brin's girlfriend, Carolyn Gilbert Soto, a Trump-loving gut health influencer. Even if she tried to diffuse the tension, joking that she would let Mr. Newsom's bad policies slide because he was handsome, she argued that the measure would wreck California's economy. Mr. Newsom, who had never seemed inclined to support the tax, came out the next month and pledged to defeat it. He declined to comment on the interaction. The December confrontation, which took place at a party thrown by the billionaire Chris Larson, Ripple alert, this would be the founder of Ripple Labs. We're not going to... I mean, if you guys in the chat, if you guys want to start arguing about Ripple versus Bitcoin versus and crypto scams and all that, have it out. I could care less. It took place at a party thrown by the billionaire Chris Larson and was recounted by 3 people briefed on it, reflecting Mr. Brin's new war footing. He is growing more politically agitated, more willing to spend his estimated $273 billion fortune on elections, and evidently more receptive to Republican points of view. Mr. Brin, 52, long showed little interest in politics. When he did, he embraced liberal causes. He donated to a campaign to defend same-sex marriage in California in 2008 and backed President Barack Obama's re-election bid in 2012. He called President Trump's election in 2016 deeply offensive in leaked comments to Google employees, and then joined a protest against Mr. Trump's ban on immigrants from several predominantly Muslim countries. In 2021, he quietly started a nonprofit group that has spent at least $88 million on climate and environmental policy. 88, huh? What did he mean by this? But now, like so many other leaders in the traditionally liberal bastion of Silicon Valley, Mr. Brin has shifted to the right. With his outspokenly conservative girlfriend by his side, he has joined the ranks of tech executives courting Mr. Trump in his second term. Last May, he attended a fundraiser featuring Vice President J.D. Vance and donated nearly $500,000 to the Republican National Committee. In September, he told the president at a White House dinner that he was, quote, very grateful for the administration's support of tech companies. This March, he was named to a White House Tech Council and donated to a Republican candidate for governor of California, who has since earned Mr. Trump's endorsement. More on that in a moment. Mr. Brin is particularly rattled by the proposal for a one-time 5% tax on California billionaires, and has emerged as Silicon Valley's leading combatant of the measure. To escape the tax, he moved before a December 31 deadline to the Nevada side of Lake Tahoe. He now spends every other week at Google's California headquarters, alternating with Nevada, a person familiar with the arrangement said. He has spent $57 million to try to undercut the measure, including $9 million more disclosed on Friday. Asked for comment on this article, Mr. Brin said in a rare statement, quote, I fled socialism with my family in 1979, and I know the devastating oppressive society it created in the Soviet Union. I don't want California to end up in the same place. The New York Times spoke with more than a dozen people close to Mr. Brin for this article, many of whom were granted anonymity to describe private conversations. Mr. Brin's spending, along with smaller donations in the California governor's race, have made him the state's second largest individual donor this election cycle, behind only the billionaire Tom Steyer, who is running for governor himself. Tom Steyer is a fucking lunatic. And frankly, like I don't trust Sergey Brin further than I could throw him. This is not like, oh look, the former shitlib Google founder is suddenly like a based trad right winger. No, not at all. Not at all. What this is a sign of the times. This is the billionaires suddenly realizing, oh shit, this political cause that I just sort of like vapidly attached myself to because it's the default culture around me is headed to complete and utter disaster. Complete and utter disaster. And I need to find whatever the other option is. What is it? What's the new thing in town? MAGA? All right, let's go. I'm MAGA now. This is what it looks like. This is what elite defection looks like. It doesn't look like all the most powerful people in the world suddenly getting red-pilled and deciding that they're going to just wholesale adopt your personal political worldview. No, this is him saying, holy shit, wait a second, we have the same enemies. This is a guy who is not a hobbyist, said Marty Wilson, the longtime political chief of the California Chamber of Commerce, who has spoken with Mr. Brenn's aides. He's very serious, and this isn't just some hobby for him. He's going to play big time. Mr. Brenn's political engagement has roughly coincided with his relationship with Ms. Gilbert Soto, which began in 2023. I almost guarantee you she is an intel asset of some sort. Would not at all be surprised if she's got connections to Mossad or what have you. Which began in 2023. Mr. Brenn began dating her after divorcing from Nicole Shanahan, who served in 2024 as RFK Jr.'s running mate. Interestingly, Nicole Shanahan has totally fallen off the radar. She hasn't tweeted in 6 months, just completely disappeared. And she's described in detail how much of a psychopath Sergey Brin was while she was married to him. I guess I have to make an obligatory note that we don't necessarily want to instinctually just trust all women, but in either case, this is like shitlib on shitlib crime. And I say that as someone who, I like Nicole Shanahan. She's great, but, you got to grade on a curve here. Ms. Gilbert Soto, 32, who goes by Gigi, describes herself on Instagram as a holistic health coach and a clean meat enthusiast. She, like Mr. Brin, regularly attends the Burning Man Festival, and she appeared on a season of the reality television series Vanderpump Rules. But she also styles herself as a firebrand in Trump world, and even some of the president's own aides are struck by her loyalty. Imagine that, loyalty. She has called Mr. Trump her bestie, owns a clutch bedazzled with MAGA, and has shown off a photo of Mr. Brin in a red MAGA hat, two people who saw it said. After the comedian Seth Rogen made anti-Trump jokes at an event last year, Ms. Gilbert Soto was incensed and complained to other guests, one attendee said. She declined an interview request. She's Make America Granola again. Yeah, remember how Jason and I were talking a couple of years ago about how the crunchy Instagram chicks were a political force to be reckoned with? Yes, we will take our plaudits for once again predicting the future for you guys. Please pay your Patriot tax in thanks. Link is pinned in the chat over on Kick. Streamlabs.com/kingpill2/tip. If you want to type it out yourselves. You can use the tips.kingpilled link, but it will not play the alerts for me. Ms. Gilbert Soto's ability to work herself into rooms with powerful people and her influence with Mr. Brin have amused some of his peers in Silicon Valley and inside Google. He remains on the board of its parent company, Alphabet. In December, she accompanied Mr. Brin to Florida to meet the conservative podcaster Ben Shapiro at his studio. She has traveled with him several times to see Mr. Trump at Mar-a-Lago or the White House and prolifically detailed their visits on social media. During the presidential transition, Ms. Gilbert Soto attended an intimate four-person dinner at Mar-a-Lago with Mr. Trump, Mr. Brin, and Sundar Pichai, Google's chief executive. Awesome night, she wrote afterward on Instagram. After attending Mr. Trump's inauguration, where she and Mr. Brin had prime seating, she wrote in an Instagram story, "Mucho gratitude for my lovey, as without him I wouldn't know the president or have even been at the inauguration." In another Instagram story, she criticized YouTube, which is owned by Google, over its suspension of Mr. Trump's account after the January 6, 2021 riot at the Capitol. Quote, "This kind of censorship was an abomination," she wrote. She was one of just 4 partners of tech leaders who attended a high-wattage dinner about artificial intelligence last September at the White House. Ms. Gilbert Soto sat next to Tim Cook, the Apple chief executive, and across from Mr. Trump, who gave her a shout-out as Mr. Brin's, quote, "really wonderful MAGA girlfriend." Tim Apple sighting. Lunatic psychopath sighting. Mr. Brin's disillusionment with his longtime home state and its push to make billionaires pay more in taxes have jolted him out of his political slumber. Mr. Brin, who is Jewish, has also been perturbed by what he sees as the leftward drift of the Democratic Party, particularly on Israel. Now, here you go. This is sort of like the signal in it. This is a big motivating factor, I'm sure, in his desire to abandon ship from the Democratic cause. But I put these stories in this order on purpose because I don't think that it's just a given that Just because someone is Jewish and a billionaire and dedicated to the cause of, I don't know, preserving Israel, this is not equivalent to someone who wants to resurrect the third temple and go for the whole Greater Israel Project and all of that. It could be. But again, like that's... You can't tell me that your focus is on making America great again, and also you want to divert every single conversation into the cause of the Greater Israel Project just as being like opposed to it. We need to wrestle control of the U.S. governing apparatuses so we can oppose the Greater Israel Project. Let me tell you more about why I am America first. California was once very freeing and liberating in thought, Mr. Brin, a Stanford PhD dropout, said in an interview on campus in December, but he added that the state was getting away from its ideological roots. Libertarianism. Late last year, he started to organize California billionaires who were fuming in group chats on Signal and WhatsApp about the potential tax on their wealth. He called some of them to drum up support, told aides in his family office to draw up plans to defeat the tax, and created 2 nonprofit groups to push his agenda. He peppered California political operatives with inside baseball questions about the state's peculiar signature collection process to place a measure on the ballot. He dined with candidates and joined campaign briefings. Crucially, he backed up the talk with money, putting $57 million over the last 4 months into one of the nonprofit groups, Building a Better California. The group insists it is not focused on the wealth tax, but in communications to donors seen by the Times, the group has explicitly said it offers both, quote, the near-term and longer-term protection against wasteful government spending and any and all new taxes on personal property and personal assets, end quote. Mr. Bren has also tried to help decide the successor to Mr. Newsom, a Democrat who is term limited. In March, Mr. Bren donated $1 million to a group supporting Mayor Matt Mayen of San Jose, a moderate Democrat running for governor with backing from the tech industry. Note this, he is a moderate Democrat. And frankly, I think he is, in terms of, if you're grading on the scale of no innocent Democrat, shout out to the great Patriot, John Doyle. There is no innocent Democrat, but on the scale of Democrats, he is a moderate one. Listen to this. A few days after the donation became public, Mr. Mayen, then desperate for cash, scrambled his schedule and flew to the Lake Tahoe area for dinner with Mr. Bren and Ms. Gilbert Soto, according to 3 people with knowledge of the matter. Mr. Mayen and his campaign chairman, Joe Green, hitched a ride on the private plane of one of Mr. Bren's friends, the tech executive Ritonker Das, who joined the dinner. At Mr. Bren's home overlooking Lake Tahoe, Mr. Mayen tried to impress the billionaire. His inner circle expected more donations to flow. But Mr. Bren did not continue giving. In late March, Mr. Mayen attended a No Kings rally, and Ms. Gilbert Soto was upset. She has turned deeply critical of Mr. Mayen. He is woke and he sucks, she wrote this month on X. Personality of a wooden spoon, boring. Ms. Gilbert Soto has been promoting a different candidate for governor, Steve Hilton, a Republican former Fox News host endorsed by Mr. Trump. Mr. Bren gave about $40,000 to back Mr. Hilton, whom he has long known because the candidate's wife is a former Google executive. Mr. Hilton said Mr. Bren made the donation after the billionaire reached out to him for a phone call. I laid out my plans for how I think we need to go in a different direction in California, Mr. Hilton said, and he seemed to agree with much of that, not necessarily all of it, but enough to support my campaign financially, which I hugely appreciated. The 2 men now text occasionally, Mr. Hilton said, and he and his wife had a meal at Mr. Bren and Ms. Gilbert Soto's home in California this month. After reading this, I'm starting to think I'm giving more credence to the idea that we may actually see a Republican governor in California. I still think it's a long shot, but there is a tremendous amount of money and influence that is lining up against the current power structure in California. And of course, you're going to get everyone who says, "Oh, it's not good enough, and it sucks, and they're bad, and they're owned by Jews or whatever." But I like, if you think you're going to sit around and wait for California to be prepared to, to be taken over by radical right-wing extremists, then you might as well just kiss California goodbye completely. What I'm saying is, to whatever extent that the Recon Californista can happen. Shout out Slutty Milk for that one. The Recon Californista In order for that to happen, whatever that looks like, it's going to look like a bunch of disaffected, maybe like IDW adjacent libs saying, no, bring back libertarianism. That's how it's going to work. Mr. Brennan and his advisors are getting a crash course in politics as they try to stop the billionaire's tax. The head of Mr. Brennan's family office, George Pavlov, is racing to learn campaign finance as he quarterbacks the billionaire's efforts, fielding inquiries from candidates in California and soliciting donations for Mr. Brennan's group opposing the billionaire tax. Another advisor is the famous investor and longtime Alphabet board member, John Doerr. Mr. Doerr has played a major behind-the-scenes role with building a better California, soliciting contributions from fellow billionaires, according to 3 people briefed on the talks, and Mr. Doerr himself has given the group $10 million. The group quickly enlisted Ned Wigglesworth. I swear they're just making names up at this point. Ned Wigglesworth, an experienced California ballot initiative consultant. He devised a strategy of pushing 3 other ballot measures that would compete against the measure for the billionaire tax, in part to challenge the tax on policy grounds, and in part to make it costlier to get on the ballot. Little realpolitik action here. Mr. Brennan's donations have been channeled through 2 dark money groups he started, including Compass 4, a Nevada-based one he created in February, to focus on affordability and election advocacy. In group texts and one-on-one phone calls, Mr. Brennan has recruited peers to join Building a Better California. Silicon Valley billionaires have worked themselves into a frenzy about the proposed tax in recent months, floating ideas in group chats like buying signature collection firms, starting escrow accounts, and funding influencer marketing, all to the chagrin of the state's operative class. A total of $93 million was raised from billionaires, including the former Google board member Michael Moritz, the former Google chief executive Eric Schmidt, and Mr. Larson, the billionaire, the Ripple guy. Operatives sought to recruit big names to give the group instant credibility, and some of those billionaires gave money precisely to stand with Mr. Brennan. So what I'm seeing from all of this is that the battle for California has begun. And the movers and shakers essentially are having no choice but to, in a broad sense, align themselves with the MAGA project. Now again, we're grading on a curve with California here. But to be able to take the power structure of California away from, or at least to begin the process of taking it away from the Newsom, Pelosi, the old guard, the old establishment, Hollywood-centric guard, and actually give it to Silicon Valley, have Silicon Valley take full control of it. It may be hard for people who maybe are not familiar with the West Coast to know the difference between the SoCal old money Hollywood lib versus the Silicon Valley lib. But these are actually pretty distinct competitive varieties of lib. And the latter one is, I would say the latter one is much more preferable, being fully aware of what that entails. I'm not saying that these are going to be like super base right wingers, but what you're going to get is you're going to get the sort of like grill pilling, libertarian sympathetic, like bring back the 90s people. And again, grading on this scale, that's significantly better.
Welcome to the Gulag. If you survive, you earn your freedom.
Perfect timing, Roy's Redemption. Thank you for the gifted sub. Congratulations to the Silent Joker. Silent indeed. Never seen the name before. Georgie P says Californian here. See, we do have Californian patriots out there. There's been a lot of blackpilling by the conservative or right crowd, especially after the failed recall effort. However, I've seen a resurgence in the on-the-ground campaigning. There's a lot of us. There are so many based people in California, truly living behind enemy lines. But I'll also remind you guys of Peter Thiel talking about how he is not going to just leave California and let it die. There's stuff about the California oil production and everything that maybe we'll get into on another one, because I'm only about halfway through the tab, so we're going to keep it going. Speaking of shit libs realizing that they need to tack toward Trump in order to keep their political lives alive, look at this new ad that just dropped.
So there's no sense in trying to avoid it. Let's just talk about the elephant in the room. I agree with President Trump a whole lot more than I disagree with him. The list is long. The Save America Act to require proof of citizenship to vote, stopping immigrant welfare, fighting the woke agenda, defending the Second Amendment, protecting the life of the unborn, securing the border. I'm Thomas Massey, and I approve this message because President Trump and I have a whole lot more to get done together.
The absolute audacity. I'd like to run a new ad this week in 3 media markets, but only if we can raise enough money to stay up on air across the district. Please donate, share this post, and let me know what you think of my new ad. The fucking sleazebag. Oh shit, I'm running out of money. Please donate. No, actually, I'm great friends with Trump. I may have called him a fucking pedophile for the last year, but actually, please donate to me because let's be friends again. Pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. Meanwhile, while he's been calling Trump a fucking pedophile, here's what Trump's Justice Department has been up to. Anthony Fauci's former senior advisor is federally indicted on covering up crucial records related to investigations into the origin of COVID. David Morins is charged on conspiracy against the United States, destruction, alteration, or falsification of records in federal investigations, concealment, removal, or mutilation of records, and aiding and abetting. Todd Blanche says these allegations represent a profound abuse of trust at a time when the American people needed it most during the height of a global pandemic. And if you drill down into the court documents here, Peter Daszak is the co-conspirator mentioned. His indictment should be next. I didn't think we'd ever see it, but accountability for the COVID origin cover-up has finally arrived. Incredible. And here you go. There's a related case listed on the docket. It's under seal, so we don't know who it is, but it does look like that there are others who either have been or are going to be charged here. Notice of related case, order to seal case, indictment is sealed. The sealed indictments! They're coming out now! It actually might happen. And on the same day that breaks, this breaks.
The Justice Department has indicted former FBI Director James Comey for a second time. Justice correspondent David Spunt's got the story. He's here in Washington. Hey, David, they're going to go at it again.
John, they're going at it again, not even a year after they went at it after the first time. We're told this via several law enforcement sources. We're told this is related to an Instagram post from the former FBI director last year when he posted on the beach. You may remember there was a formation of shells that said 8647 that were in that pairing of 8647, and he said something along the lines of, "Isn't this a curious formation that I just found while walking on the beach?" Well, critics to that post immediately pointed out that 86, at least in the restaurant world, means to get rid of or to kill something from a menu, 47 meaning the 47th president of the United States. So Comey did speak with the Secret Service, did speak with federal investigators. At the time he was interviewed last spring or early last summer, shortly after that happened, no charges were ever filed, but now it appears that he has been indicted today. We're working to learn more about the indictment.
So he's being indicted for his obvious attempt to call for the assassination of Trump. More on this in just a second. I want to highlight this comment from Kate. She said, the angle should be having power shifting towards the gundo wing of the Silicon Valley class. Dynamic Christian vitality versus libertarian /IDW /effective altruists. That, I think, that is the breakdown. That's such a good observation. That is the emerging split, I think, that's going to start taking over California. Those are going to be the two perspectives within California, broadly speaking. So what started in Silicon Valley is going to take over not just California, it's going to take over the nation. And it's going to largely determine a lot about the future political party composition. It's not the only thing, because it's a huge country and there's lots of different interest groups and lots of power centers. But in this particular domain, you have the gundo segment of Silicon Valley, which has the legitimate possibility of completely reinvigorating, especially paired with reindustrialization and the bringing back all of American, productive capacity, reindustrializing America, and adding in automation and robots to all of that. We're talking about an extraordinary expansion of new industries, new jobs, new productivity, raising the standard of living for everyone else. And then you can have still the more, you have like the effective altruist side, which is the Sam Altman and the Dario Amodei, like those types of people who I think are really inheriting the mantle of the financial and political mantle of the old guard in California. But you've got this new insurgent, EAC, more vitalist libertarian side that's really on the ascendancy within California politics. And just were we to actually get a Republican governor, even if he's a totally like cucked, corrupt Republican, just merely having Republican by his name would be a massive shift in the psychology of California. And if you start using him as like the foot in the door to begin cleaning up the voter rolls, going after the different corruption and everything, oh, baby. Dr. Doom Guy! This is Trump's America! He doesn't even say anything. Thank you, sir. Great patron of the astrolab. Look at that, 76-76. Beautiful, beautiful numbers. Ryan Isaac says, I'm okay with a corrupt Republican because it means helping our side continually win. Bingo. Exactly. We would rather have corrupt Republicans than psychopathic Democrats. This should be very easy to agree upon. Now listen to this good old boy here, breaking down the charges that James Comey is facing here. And this is a grand jury indictment, so this is not a light issue.
Earlier today, a grand jury in the Eastern District of North Carolina returned a true bill indicting Mr. James Comey with committing 2 felonies. Count 1, he knowingly and willfully made a threat to kill and to inflict bodily harm upon the President of the United States in violation of 18 U.S.C. 871A. Count 2, he knowingly and willfully transmitted in interstate and foreign commerce a communication that contained a threat to kill President Trump in violation of 18 U.S.C. 875C. Earlier,
this guy here. So you note that the district where this is happening is, that guy's name is Ellis Boyle. The district this is happening it's happening in North Carolina, because that's where he was when he posted the photograph. Here is our Attorney General, Todd Blanche.
So I think it's fair to say that threatening the life of anybody is dangerous and potentially a crime. Threatening the life of the President of the United States will never be tolerated by the Department of Justice. Over the past year, this department has charged dozens of cases involving threats against all sorts of individuals. We take these seriously, every single one of them. For example, just today in the Northern District of Florida, there was a guilty plea from an individual who threatened multiple political leaders, including President Trump. In the Eastern District of North Carolina, where this case was indicted earlier today, there are multiple threats cases very similar to this one, including one where the defendant pled guilty recently to threatening former President Biden, another one that's scheduled to go to trial this summer, another one indicted, an individual was indicted for threatening Tom Homan. I say that...
You keep your hands off of Tom Homan.
...to say that while this case is unique and this indictment stands out because of the name of the defendant, his alleged conduct is the same kind of conduct that we will never tolerate and that we will always investigate and regularly prosecute.
I just love the scenes of the Attorney General being like this guy may be special because of his name, but he's just a common criminal. He's just a common criminal like these other psychopaths who we've indicted under the exact same terms. This is run-of-the-mill DOJ policy, that people who do things like what he did get prosecuted. This isn't crazy. America First Insight says, we get why the Trump admin filed charges for Comey. Rather than D.C., the Instagram post of 8647 is being charged where Comey was when he actually made the post, which was Eastern North Carolina, which means the jury pool is R+2 instead of like D+70. And then he was asked about this as with respect to the First Amendment. And I got to say, I'm going to read a post here about Pam Bondi in just a minute because everyone's getting this wrong. But I'm a real big fan of the Attorney General looking and sounding like this guy.
that shows that Mr. Comey intended for President Trump to be harmed? And then secondarily, for critics who say, where does free speech end and an actual threat of violence begin?
I don't know what critics say that, especially today, but it's not a very difficult line to look at, and it's not, in my mind, a difficult line for one to cross over one way or the other. We cannot, you are not allowed to threaten the President of the United States of America. That's not my decision. That's Congress's decision and a statute that they passed that we charge multiple times a year. And so whether there is a defense, as you just described, maybe there is, but the government will have evidence. I am not going to talk about the evidence that we have. That's unfair to him. It's unfair to the prosecutors, but it's enough to say that the grand jury returned an indictment. I'm just
Now, let's see here. Okay, here's our favorite hockey Jeet has some words for us. This is the timeline has been awash lately. For those of you who are not on X, you haven't been experiencing what the rest of us have. The timeline has been absolutely awash recently with Indians killing themselves in the most Looney Tunes fashions. Like walking around with big metal sticks and whacking non-insulated power lines ahead of them, diving headfirst into 6 inches deep of water with like a cement pool. They just dive headfirst into it, getting hit by cars in the most absurd ways. Frankly, I don't believe the population numbers that they cite. There is no way that a group of people who consistently kill themselves in the most Looney Tunes of fashions have actually managed to amass whatever 1.5 billion people or whatever they claim to have. There is just no possible way.
As you heard from the Attorney General, the U.S. Attorney, former FBI Director James Comey has now been indicted for 2 felony counts. While many of you may read this indictment and view this matter as a simple investigation, it is the farthest thing from that. Every single investigation this FBI and our partners at the Department of Justice undertake, especially those that involve the threats to harm or hurt or even kill individuals, whether they hold public office or civilians in our country, are met with the same measure of investigative prowess and tools and personnel in partnership with the Department of Justice as anyone else. As the U.S. Attorney indicated, James Comey will be afforded every matter of due process under the United States Constitution. And as the Attorney General indicated, this has been a case that's been investigated over the past 9, 10, 11 months. These cases...
Wait. You mean that you start an investigation and it can take, the better part of a year and nobody knows about it? And then all of a sudden the indictment is unsealed and then we all find out about it? So you're telling me that things can be happening even though it's not showing up on my For You page? So I can recognize my own lack of object permanence and rest assured that things are happening even if they aren't being pumped into my eyeballs in the form of breaking slop headlines? I can't believe it.
This take time. Our investigators work methodically. They are career agents, career prosecutors who work these matters. They call the balls and strikes in the field as they see fit pursuant to the facts of the case and the law. They took that information and made a presentment to a grand jury, a jury of peers in the district in which the alleged crime took place. And that grand jury spoke, and that grand jury returned a 2-count indictment against James Comey.
Talk dirty to me, Sar. Raymond Harmon said one of the Jeet videos was a guy stabbing himself with a knife he was dancing with by hitting his chest aggressively. Yeah, he's just there dancing around and he's got a big long bladed knife and he just stabs himself in the chest several times and he's like, oh, wait a second. I'm covered in blood. I'm dying now. Insane people. Tikon says, do not underestimate how much Kash hates that giant douche. Yes. Kash Patel, I will go to my grave with this. Kash Patel is a fucking patriot and the man detests these people. Absolutely. He has been personally violated by them repeatedly. He has strong incentive to go after them for his own reasons, and he has been continuously loyal to the president, no matter how bad things have gotten around him. Slutty Mook said pooplier weapons regarding nuclear weapons in India. How does he do it? Slutty Mook's in the chat. Another big thing that happened yesterday, we were told this wasn't happening, but it turns out, once again, just because something's not on your For You page doesn't mean that it's not happening.
Now, large-scale raids targeting federal fraud currently underway. Federal agents seen leaving the Quality Learning Center, and Brooke Taylor has more on that.
Get it right, Fox faggot. It's the Quality Learning Center.
And what they're looking for. Brooke, good morning.
Hi, Bill. Good morning. Yeah, we have had a photographer there at the daycare since this morning, capturing video of those federal agents just going in and out of the building, collecting evidence as part of the DOJ's fraud investigation in Minnesota. Take a look at this video here. Sources tell Fox that federal agents are raiding about 22 businesses across Minneapolis this morning, and sources say many of them are tied to Somali-owned operations. All of this comes after that viral YouTube video.
Brandon Gill, who I'm going to play a video of here in just a moment. Brandon Gill, representative from, I believe, from Texas. He posted earlier that this is basically World War XII for Ilhan Omar. I was dying. I told you guys that you're gonna be working out your MAGA cocks on the show today.
From Nick Shirley. It was back in December. In that video, he visited different child care centers, and you'll remember they were either closed or there were just no children inside, despite receiving state child care funding. Now, the location that you're looking at right now, it's the Quality Learning Center. This is the daycare. It went viral. It blew up on social media because of a sign outside with learning that was literally misspelled. The education secretary at the time claimed that the daycare received $1.9 million while, quote, masquerading as a daycare. And then shortly after that, the Trump administration announced it was freezing child care funding to Minnesota and calling for a full audit of certain daycare centers. And just checking my emails now, it looks like we got a statement from DHS sharing, quote, Homeland Security investigations in cooperation with our law enforcement partners executed criminal search warrants in Minneapolis relating to the rampant fraud of U.S. taxpayers' dollars. And as you could see there, federal agents still outside one of those daycare centers where they have been the last few hours.
I love how down here it says Trump and Melania greet the king and queen. Mr. Chucky, sir, looks like your investments are going south while we're having these great grand meetings together. JD Vance says the task force and the DOJ will be relentless in exposing these fraudsters wherever they may be hiding. Thank you, Mr. Vice President, sir. Raiding 20-plus locations in the Minneapolis, Minnesota area in relation to ongoing federal fraud investigations. I also saw that what's his name, Tim Walz, No Balls Walz, was trying to claim. He's like, oh, great, a great enforcement of justice, trying to claim credit for doing this. Yeah, Trump betrayed us. Trump isn't doing mass executions of members of Congress. He betrayed me again. More. Look at this. The DOJ has been pretty active for being completely incompetent and abandoning Trump. The DOJ just sued Cloudera for rigging high-paying tech jobs against American workers. They created a fake internal email that bounced every U.S. applicant's resume, then claimed no qualified Americans applied to fast-track foreign visa holders for green cards. This is deliberate discrimination, plain and simple. American jobs should go to Americans first. Harmeet Dillon, speaking of our great Jeets. Don't tell her I called her that. We just sued Cloudera for discriminating against U.S. workers in favor of foreign visa holders for high-paying tech jobs. This is a violation of the Immigration and Nationality Act, and the Civil Rights Division will not hesitate to sue employers for discriminating against U.S. workers. You are on notice. Also, North Carolina mentioned again. The swing state of North Carolina just confirmed that it found 34,000 deceased people on its voter rolls. It happened again. That thing the left said is impossible. Purge the rolls. Harmeet Dillon, again.
So you've asked all 50 states to look at the voter rolls. And I think it's a worthy endeavor. No one wants illegal immigrants voting. Everyone wants, dead people off the rolls. Some states have worked with you. Other states have not. Can you tell me about that effort and where it stands today?
Sure. We've gotten voluntary compliance or settlements with about a third of the states, and we've run about 60 million plus records. And in that regard, we've already found 350,000 dead people on the voter rolls, and those are in the states that are voluntarily complying with us. And we've referred about 25,000 people with no citizenship records in those.
So 350,000 dead people in the states that are complying. We've referred about 25,000 people with no citizenship record. So 34,000. So basically 34,000 Democrat votes were just taken away from North Carolina. North Carolina alone. Now, this account, okay, hold on a second. I decided I'm going to do this. I'm making a little bit better progress than I expected. So let me pull up another tweet that I've had in the hopper for a little bit, because I want to talk about this particular phenomenon here. We're going to do a little sidetrack for just a moment. You guys will see why it's relevant. This account, we've got to talk about our Gen X posters. Ah, damn it. Hold on a second. I just clicked something I didn't mean to. Whew. Okay. Spooked me there for a second. I thought I did just close a bunch of open tabs instead of minimizing. I didn't want to lose all of those because that's the next couple of shows. Almost ready to go. We need to do something about our Gen X posters, guys, because look at this account here. L.H. Gray, femme fatale, artist and writer, gay, alpha cunt, exorcist of the narratives, visceral, hell bitch, atheist, taken by my baby doll, ghost of Cynthia. Magoo! 1776, so appropriate. You should have had an N and an R in there. Thank you, Magoo. So this chick here, this account, LH Gray, I've seen so many people who have replied and retweeted and just her replies are constantly full of people like, oh, you're just such an amazing poster. This is incredible. This is the sort of shit she posts. I am fucking furious. Still, it's intensifying. I am motherfucking done with both these necrotic parties that have turned the Republic into a whorehouse, where the Constitution gets gang raped nightly, and the only debate is which pimp gets the bigger cut. But the Republicans, oh, the Republicans, those spineless, ballless, invertebrate sacks of tactical faggotry, I reserve a special circle of hell for them. They didn't just fail to fight, they held the door open, offered lube, and apologized for the inconvenience while the left sodomized every last institution we built. They watched the country get bent over to the altar of progress, and their only contribution was a strongly worded press release, a fundraising email, and a performative prayer circle for the cameras. Pussies. Clinical, pathological pussies. Not the garden variety yellow-bellied pussification of ordinary men, no. This is a sophisticated, highly evolved strain of moral cowardice that would make Nietzsche vomit. Not the X, no, the Y. A strongly worded press release, 1. A fundraising email, 2. And a performative prayer circle for the cameras, 3. This is the clearest LLM vomit that I've ever seen in my life. And every single one of her posts is like this. And the replies are just loaded up with people who are like, oh, girl, you're such a great poster, so powerful, it's so good to see you again. Even people that I like and respect. This sort of shit is like absolute catnip for the Gen X male mind. I don't know what it is. The female mind too, but the Gen X male mind especially. All of these guys are just lining up in her replies. And they're like, oh, incredible. And I'm like, dude, you're replying to a bot. These are men who have internalized the enemy's frame so completely they now police their own side for extremism, while the other side burns the village down. They're not conservatives, they're managed opposition. Domesticated wolves who traded their fangs for 401ks, Fox News green rooms, and the warm approval of people who despise them. This is ChatGPT! They don't lack power, they lack the will to use it. The exact same tropes over and over again. And that, my darlings in rage, is the blackest pathology of all. The suicide of the strong by their own hand. Philosophy calls it acedia, the sloth of the soul that masquerades as prudence. I call it what it is, treason with better haircuts. I see blood because I see the autopsy of a civilization being performed in real time by people who swore an oath to protect it, then spent the next 4 decades negotiating the terms of its dismemberment. Every time a Republican leader lectures us about democracy while another federal agency is weaponized against us, another border is erased, another child is chemically castrated in the name of tolerance, another trillion is printed into the pockets of their donors, I feel the ancient Roman in me rising with a gladius and a simple question. When do we stop pretending these people are on our side? They aren't. They are the polite face of the same metastatic cancer. The Democrats are the tumor that wants to kill the host quickly and loudly. The Republicans are the tumor that wants to kill it slowly, tastefully, while assuring the host it's all perfectly legal and bipartisan. I loathe them with a purity that borders on religious. Not because they're evil in the cartoon sense, but because they are weak in the most dangerous way possible. The weakness that flatters itself as wisdom. The weakness that smiles, nods, and passes the next omnibus bill, while Rome burns and they roast marshmallows on the flames. Fuck them. Fuck their principles. Fuck their statesmanship. Fuck their carefully calibrated outrage that always arrives 2 years too late and 5 degrees too polite. I will not let this go. I will carry this rage like a blade between my teeth until the day either the Republic is reborn in fire or I am lowered into the ground still snarling. There is no third option. There is no both sides are bad, so I'll just grill. There is only the cold, clear recognition that one side is actively destroying us and the other side is masturbating to the polling data while it happens. And history, that merciless bitch, will not record their careful excuses. She will record only the blood on their hands and the fact that they washed them in the same sink as the people who held the knife. So here I am, teeth bared, eyes full of murder light, not asking for permission, just waiting for enough real men to finally admit what I already know in my marrow. The Republicans didn't lose the country, they surrendered it. And I will never, ever forgive them for it. It's just like, this is like Gen X distilled into text. I don't know what it is about that generation, but it is like I could see where millennial Reddit culture emerged out of. It came from interacting with these people. First Citizen said this is the kind of super chat that Fuentes would want to hang himself for. That's so true. Yeah. Oh man. Let me see what you guys are saying about this. I've almost read some of her tweets a few times now because she has just such a distinct style about her. Aspiring Midwit says, yeah, that's cool and all, lady, but I ordered that drink like 15 minutes ago. Living Dead says half of the stuff that everyone says are boomer behavior are actually Gen X. That's a really good point. There's like a clear distinction between the boomers and the Gen X. You can see why they're related, but the Gen X thing just, like, one of it is this like super, like hyper performative profanity and vulgarity. A lot of people will say that's a millennial thing. No. That's a Gen X thing. To the extent that millennials will do that, it's because they're aping what their older siblings did. Wet says Gen Xers' entire personality is hate for authority, oftentimes legitimate authority. Makes them kind of gross, to be honest. Yeah. That's the failure state of Gen X. Logan, Texas says this is Morning Glory milking farm for men. Nematoder says I'm crying. The beauty, Rage Against the Machine in Foid form. Yeah. Oh, that's really good. Yeah, it is rage. It is the female form of rage. Spiritual Bill Burr. Oh yeah, you guys are good. You guys are really good. Okay, so having read that, now here's one from her this is quite good. I've been asked for my opinion about Pam Bondi, so here it is. Pam Bondi, in my opinion, was deployed as a precision instrument in a theater of institutional warfare, where the Attorney General's role is less about courtroom theatrics and more about reshaping the DOJ's internal architecture from within a bureaucracy engineered to resist exactly that. To mistake her 15-month tour for failure is to misunderstand the architecture of power itself. Bondi entered the DOJ in February 2025 after Matt Gaetz' nomination collapsed under its own weight. She inherited an agency riddled with holdovers, career as prosecutors, and institutional muscle memory tuned to the prior regime's priorities. Her mandate, executed with the cold ferocity of a Florida prosecutor who once stared down the Clintons and lived to tell it, was never to play the long public game of show trials. It was to do the lethal and visible labor. Now, what I think that she did is actually she managed the public game. She was actually like responsible for the theatrics. But her responsibility was to manage that above the ground stuff, while my suspicion is Todd Blanche has been the real driving force on the actual implementation, but it's within the auspices that she has created because she is herself an extremely experienced, well-connected prosecutor. Purge disloyal elements, redirect investigative task forces, shutter the foreign influence shops that have become political protection rackets, and, most critically, build the factual scaffolding of cases that could survive judicial scrutiny once the political headwinds shifted. That is precisely what she delivered. Under her watch, the DOJ secured historic gang and cartel takedowns, first ever Antifa terrorism convictions, and a string of Supreme Court victories that rewrote the operational rules of engagement. Murder rates plunged to levels unseen in over a century. Those are not the metrics of a lightweight. They're the metrics of someone who understood that the real war is won in the grand jury rooms and the classified briefings long before any defendant ever sees a courtroom. The public theater, the Epstein Files fiasco, the congressional grillings, the slow bleed perception that Trump's enemies weren't being prosecuted fast enough, was the predictable noise generated by an entrenched apparatus that weaponizes leaks, redactions, and procedural sabotage the moment it senses its own exposure. Bondi absorbed that fire so the next occupant of the office would inherit dockets already primed, evidence chains already hardened, and a bureaucracy already blooded and compliant. She was the breaching charge. The follow-on force, now under acting leadership that can move with fewer Senate constraints and fresher political capital, gets to deliver the kill shots. This is not speculation, it's the pattern of every high-stakes Trump DOJ transition. First-term chaos taught the lesson. The Senate-confirmed loyalist who survives confirmation must serve as the institutional wrecking ball. The public demands scalps, the law demands airtight cases. This is, LLM slop aside, this is a really good point. The public demands scalps, the law demands airtight cases. How do you get both of these at the same time? Bondi supplied the latter while the former were still being assembled. Those who call her tenure incompetent reveal either their ignorance of how the executive branch actually functions, or their desire to keep the machine broken so it can never be turned against its former masters. She was never meant to be the permanent face of the Justice Department. She was the architect who laid the rebar and poured the concrete under fire. The structure now stands, the new tenants can furnish it with indictments. That's not failure, that's lethal, disciplined statecraft. And the critics who cannot see the difference have no business commenting on power at this altitude. And Mike Davis quote tweeted it with the dart emoji and says, started under Emil Bove, Pam Bondi fired bad people, hired good people, closed bad cases, and opened good cases. The shock and awe campaign brought to heel the out-of-control DOJ career staff who thought they didn't report to anyone and sabotaged the will of American voters by sabotaging their president and his team. Pam defended and won a nearly unbroken series of monumental Supreme Court cases, restoring the president's constitutional powers to deliver on his electoral mandate for all Americans. Todd Blanche, her loyal wingman, is finishing the job. So all the lazy commentary is Pam Bondi was blocking all of this, and now Todd Blanche is actually the one who can take over and do all these things. No. The irony is that many of the same people had been telling me for the last several months that Todd Blanche was the subversive who was blocking everything. But both of them are known for their deep and abiding loyalty to Trump personally. And they actually worked really well together as a hand in glove. And there's no way that all of these indictments that are coming now, there's no way, these did not just spring up in the last couple of weeks. All of these indictments have been working in the background for months. While Pam Bondi was providing the cover, all of this stuff was happening behind the scenes so that it can come out now. Okay, a little immigration update here from our great Appeal to Pragmatism poster at Durzum_. DHS has a series of rule proposals which may soon restrict work authorization from millions of migrants. These rules include doubling the wait time and pausing new applications until average processing time is at or below 180 days, which could take 10 to 100 years to finish. Immigration proposal could strip asylum seekers of legal employment. And he adds, in addition to restricting work authorization, Trump's DHS will deny migrants who fail to pay the new fees imposed by his big beautiful bill. DHS announces consequences for unpaid annual asylum fees and unveils new H.R. 1 requirements. In an effort to satisfy the statutory mandate that DHS require payment of the AAF, the interim final rule establishes that if an alien does not pay the AAF, within 30 days of notification, USCIS will reject their pending asylum application. If an alien does not have legal status in the U.S., USCIS will also initiate the alien's removal. He says, this adds a new risk of rejection and removal for otherwise lawful and legal aliens. A lot of systematic pressure building this year. They're using the bureaucratic, what would you call it? Like the bureaucratic, whatever. They're using the nature of bureaucracy being slow and cumbersome and tedious and irritating. They're using that as a great feature. They're maximizing it. Death by a million cuts. We, the executive branch, cannot unilaterally remove these different visa programs. We can't eliminate them. What we can do is we can erect a whole bunch of institutional hurdles in front of them and suffocate these programs by just decreasing demand for them and ensuring that it takes so long to get through all of them that people just give up and don't enter the process to begin with. Now, I told you guys that I kind of expected this to happen, and sure enough, it has come to pass. The Virginia Supreme Court has officially denied Democrats' move to reinstate the 10 Democrat to 1 Republican congressional map, refusing to pause the lower court order which blocks certification. So they had their vote. The vote passed and was immediately appealed. I told you about the judge the other day who blocked it. Jay Jones, remember the guy who during the election, it came out that he was wishing death upon the children of one of the Republicans in Virginia. He is the attorney general in Virginia now. He appealed that judge blocking it. He appealed it up to the Supreme Court, the Virginia Supreme Court, and the Virginia Supreme Court has denied his appeal, upholding the lower court, blocking the implementation of this referendum. So the map will stay blocked while legal challenges play out. The Florida redrawing plus this map being DOA would be absolutely enormous for the midterms. Here is a video on the blockage and some of the things to expect going forward.
Breaking tonight, a circuit court in Virginia ruled a short time ago, within the past 2 hours, that the redistricting referendum passed by voters yesterday is unconstitutional. The judge is now blocking certification of the election and denying a motion to stay pending appeal. Virginia's Democratic Attorney General responding by posting that he plans to appeal that. Correspondent Mark Meredith has...
Right, good evening to you. Plenty of new drama here in the Commonwealth tonight. Republicans are challenging the legality of yesterday's ballot measure. They have asked a judge to throw out the case, essentially to wait for it to happen. An injunction was issued. The judge agreeing. Democrats, as you mentioned, say they are going to appeal, that there's no merit to this case, that they believe this is an attempt to override the will of the voters. Either way, Brett, this is creating a lot more chaos ahead of November's midterms.
Donald Trump and Republicans launch this gerrymandering war. We're going to finish
the N-word.
Democrats are claiming victory after Virginia voters narrowly approved a referendum giving state lawmakers power to redraw congressional maps this year, likely shrinking Republican representation from 5 House districts to 1.
It's a hyper-partisan gerrymandering boondoggle.
Critics accuse Virginia's Democratic governor, Abigail Spanberger, of flip-flopping after previously calling gerrymandering detrimental to democracy. She says it's now justified after Texas redrew its maps.
We want to respond to what we see other states doing at the request of this.
Shut up, bitch!
Republicans say the fight's not over. The state Supreme Court has yet to rule if the referendum was legal to begin with.
We believe we have a very strong case before the state Supreme Court.
Today, President Trump, without proof, said the race was rigged, adding, "Let's see if the courts will fix this travesty of justice." Multiple states have already redrawn maps this year. Republicans say they've likely increased the majority by 3 to 5 seats in Texas. Democrats say the same in California. Both parties making smaller gains in Utah, North Carolina, and Ohio, with Democrats now holding to a 2 to 4 seat gain overall. Next up, Florida, where a proposal meant to gain Republican seats may be unveiled as soon as next week. Top Democrats are vowing to spend millions to fight back. Today, Governor Ron DeSantis said, "Bring it on."
Please be my guest. I will pay for you to come down to Florida and campaign. I'll put you up in the Florida governor's mansion.
Other states are also looking at redistricting, including Louisiana and Missouri, but some court cases have slowed down the process, and the states are also eagerly awaiting a ruling from the Supreme Court when it comes to the Voting Rights Act, which could limit the role race plays when it comes to drawing new voting maps. Brett.
Now, we'll talk about that Voting Rights Act thing here in just a moment. Kate J says, speaking of election maps, Florida House just passed their new congressional map that'll add 4 seats for Republicans. So there you go. 4 seats now for Republicans coming from Florida. Crystal ball House ratings if the newly redrawn Virginia map gets struck down and if the newly redrawn Florida map is approved. What it's going to do is it bumps Republicans by 6 seats, knocks Democrats down by 8 seats, and leaves us at 15 toss-ups. So 2 Democrat seats become Republican seats, 2 Democrat seats become toss-up seats. There is the map for whatever it's worth. Now that doesn't include the Voting Rights Act, the Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act case, which that is directly applicable to these blue regions down here. Look at this. This right here, this district in Louisiana. See this like diagonal monstrosity right here? This is the one that is before the Supreme Court on this Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act question. Now, we'll get to that here in just a second, but I just wanted to highlight... actually, no, it is this one. Okay, so stunning blow to Democrat cheating as U.S. Supreme Court rules racial gerrymandering under the VRA as unconstitutional. That Louisiana map, this one right here, has been thrown out. It's been tossed out as null and void, 6-3. Here is a video from Fox discussing it. Now, this dropped literally seconds before I went live, so we'll probably end up having more on this, but I had to squeeze it in.
We do from the U.S. Supreme Court. We've been waiting months for this decision, okay?
Every week.
Yes, there was a question before the court as to whether or not a state law in Louisiana intentionally created a second majority-minority congressional district in violation of the 14th or 15th Amendment, specifically whether or not they created a district that would help African Americans in 2 separate parts of Louisiana. The justices have rendered their decision. Shannon Bream is now live going through it, and she has the verdict. Shannon, good morning.
Good morning. Okay, so this at first blush here is a win for the plaintiffs who were not black plaintiffs. They were non-minority voters who challenged this decision. These 2 districts that were minority majority. Essentially, Louisiana had drawn up districts, and then they were told in a legal battle that they had not represented black and minority voters sufficiently. They went back and drew a second district. So they had 2 of these minority majority districts. Well, then non-black voters sued and said, this is now violating our rights on the basis of race. So it looks like this is a 6-3 decision. There is one concurrence here, but it looks like the dissent sticks together with Justices Kagan, Sotomayor, and Jackson.
So it was just split along. It was the 3 libs against the 6 so-called conservatives. Now, here is CBS. That was Fox talking about it. Here is CBS, and in particular, they mention Kagan's dissent, where Kagan she wrote the dissent for the 3 lib women, and she is freaking out. Sky is falling.
Supreme Court just issued a ruling on a potentially groundbreaking redistricting case that could impact, for many years to come, the power of minority voters in this country. It focuses on the constitutionality of Louisiana's congressional map and how it was redrawn. The justices determined if Louisiana lawmakers properly balance constitutional and Voting Rights Act protections. I want to get straight to CBS News chief legal correspondent Jan Crawford, who has been reading through the opinion. Jan?
Well, Major, we just got this ruling within the last couple of minutes. The justices in a 6-3 vote, a decision written by Justice Samuel Alito for the other 5 conservatives, are striking down a second majority black district in Louisiana, ruling that state officials focused on race, and that amounted to an unconstitutional racial gerrymander. Now, this decision is a major one under the Voting Rights Act. It will go well beyond Louisiana. It's going to make it, based on what we're seeing so far, it will make it harder for state officials to draw up these so-called majority-minority districts, which have been used for decades and have increased black representation and minority representation in Congress. And it also, I think, will call into question about a dozen or so existing majority-minority districts, mostly in the South. Now, those districts, as you know, Major, have been a way for Democrats to pick up seats in some of those states, those red states in the South. So this ruling is a win, I think we can say, for Republicans. But legally, this is a Supreme Court that going back 20 years or more has been saying in case after case, a consistent line of cases, that the Constitution is colorblind. And that's why we've seen the Supreme Court do things like throw out affirmative action in college admissions. This line of cases is very consistent with the court's ruling today. What about the midterms? I think this ruling coming today, 6 months after it was argued back in October, may come too late to have an impact on these upcoming midterm elections. I think the focus will be going forward, limiting states from considering race.
Now, it's possible. It has. If this had been decided months ago, it would have been much more likely. It's possible that it's too late, but it's not for sure. Now, there's an opportunity here for a number of different Republican states to really go hard on their redistricting with this now. But this is part of the way that they set expectations. So she comes out and she says, no, it's going to be too late, which means now that it's on the record of, it's going to be too late to do anything with this upcoming election, it's just going to be perspective. If Republicans start trying to make things happen for the upcoming midterms, now they're breaking norms. This is unusual. This is crazy and aggressive and radical.
When they're trying to consciously and intentionally draw up districts to increase minority representation. That means, Major, that you might not have as many of those kind of ink-blocked states or states that have districts that zigzag like a Z, where they go from, like this one did, from Shreveport all the way down 250 miles to Baton Rouge, scooping up black voters along the way to, again, pick up voters to get enough black voters there to have that majority. So I think
that was exactly the way that these are designed. So the majority-minority districts they're specifically drawing out these districts to intentionally ensure that the districts are majority non-white. They're directly rigging the elections because if they're, assume non-white voters are more likely to vote Democrat, they're using race to rig the elections to give disproportionate representation to non-white voters. So this is directly rigging the government against whites, openly, flagrantly.
Think, that will restrict some of those cases, those districts for sure. Looking at this decision, it's 37 pages long. There is a dissent by liberal Justice Elena Kagan that appears to be longer than the majority, and it looks like a barn burner.
I like how Kagan came out with a leftist meme in response to it.
She is saying that today's ruling is gutting the Voting Rights Act and will call into peril some of the accomplishments that we've seen over that historic 1965 law that really dismantled Jim Crow and systemic barriers to voting for black people in the South. Of course.
What's that? This is gutting the Voting Rights Act?
Uh-oh. Boner alert.
Supreme Court today, as they have in recent decisions on voting rights, is saying the country has moved past that. It's time to stop intentionally focusing on race. And as Chief Justice John Roberts said in a case back in 2007, the way to end discrimination, race discrimination based on race, is to stop discriminating based on race. And this Supreme Court, with those 6 conservative justices, believes that racial preferences, whether it's in affirmative action, whether it's in redistricting, that can amount to unconstitutional race discrimination, Major.
Now, I'm very interested to read the opinion written by Alito because this is getting down into the legal nuances of this is quite interesting, because essentially what they're saying is that there was a time where this was appropriate, but racial issues have changed in the country such that it's no longer appropriate to have this, which is kind of different from. It's like once upon a time this was constitutional, but now it's not constitutional. Now, again, this is just kind of my initial thoughts on it, just from a couple of brief things that I saw. I wasn't able to really dig into it before I got the show started. So we'll have more on that on a future lab, I'm sure. Here we go. This is a poll I mentioned at the top of the show yesterday. The Harvard-Harris poll, 423 to 26. This is for the 2026 generic congressional ballot. It is now at 50-50. Among registered voters, it is at 50-50. And among likely voters, it is at 50-50. Among registered voters, Republicans have gained, Democrats have gained 1, Democrats have lost 1. Among likely voters, Republicans have gained 2, Democrats have lost 2. I've been consistent on this. I felt like I'm out on an island sometimes, but I've been consistent on this. I'm optimistic about the midterms. About not just limiting damage in the midterms, but actually increasing majority in the midterms. It's still not guaranteed, but things are definitely starting to move in that direction. And I'm going to continue living out here. I might have to be alone out on this island, but I'm going to keep my flag planted here. Midterms are going to be, I don't think it's going to be a red wave, but it's definitely not going to be a blue wave. And I think the odds are very good that Republicans not only retain their majority, but even potentially increase it. Kate says, my goodness, more happenings. House just passed a resolution advancing FISA. The Senate passed DHS funding resolution and the Farm Bill after Johnson was able to flip 7 Republican nays to yays. Good grief. Okay, I know the FISA one is going to be controversial, so I might have to get some stuff to talk about that, because the the retard talking heads are incapable of recognizing the nuance, even after the president has delineated precisely the nuance he's talking about with that. So we'll talk about that more in the future. Now, while all of this is happening, all of these wins are happening, here are a couple of Republicans. I got a couple videos now of Republicans just absolutely bludgeoning Democrats in public. First of all, we've got Brandon Gill, Congressman Brandon Gill, talking about abortion. This right here, this video, is perhaps one of the greatest displays of rhetorical brutality that I have seen from any American politician with respect to the opposing party, but specifically Republicans with respect to Democrats. Listen to this.
You're an advocate for abortion, for abortion policy. What's your favorite type of abortion?
I am an advocate for patients having access to the full realm of reproductive health care.
But do you have a preferred method of abortion that you like?
I do not.
Let me read through a couple different methods, and I want to get your take on how much you like these. The first type is called a suction abortion. This is when the cervix is dilated and a strong suction, 29 times the power of a household vacuum cleaner, tears the baby's body apart and sucks it through the hose into a container. Do you prefer that method?
I stand by my former testimony.
That sounds kind of gross, doesn't it? Sounds pretty gruesome. Do you agree? It does to me.
I stand by how I answered your question fully and accurately.
If you're not getting audio on this, then you need to, it's left channel only. So if you're only listening to one headphone, you want to listen to your left headphone.
Accurately.
Okay, what about this one? This one is called dilation and curettage. After dilation of the cervix, a sharp looped knife is inserted into the uterus. The baby's body is cut into pieces and extracted, often by suction. Do you prefer that method?
What I believe we are here to talk about today is the FACE Act. We are not here to talk
I'm
about
asking
the
you, you're
legality
a
of
pro-abortion
abortion.
advocate. I'm asking if you prefer the dilation and curettage method.
I am a access to reproductive health care advocate.
You don't want to talk about abortion itself. Why is that?
I would prefer to talk about the reason that the committee called the hearing.
Is it because it's
freedom of
uncomfortable to talk
access.
about?
Would prefer
It should be uncomfortable.
I would prefer, if you would let me finish my statement, to talk about the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act, which is
We're
what I was
talking about
asked to come
what that
here
access
to talk about.
gets. How about this one? It's called dilation and evacuation. Forceps are inserted into the uterus, grabbing and twisting the baby's body to dismember him or her. If the head is too large, it must be crushed in order to remove it. Do you prefer that method?
I would prefer to talk about the reason the hearing was called and the basis of my expert testimony.
It's uncomfortable to hear this, isn't it? It is. I think it is, because it's barbaric and evil. How about this one? It's called the saline injection. It's when a 20% salt solution is injected through the mother's abdomen into the baby's amniotic fluid. The baby's skin is burned off. The baby ingests the solution and dies of salt poisoning, dehydration, and hemorrhaging of the brain. Do you prefer that method?
I would prefer to talk about the subject of the hearing.
This is the subject of the hearing. This is about protests outside of abortion clinics. I'm asking you about abortion.
I stand by my prior testimony.
Okay. I wouldn't want to talk about this either if I were you, because it is barbaric and evil.
Absolute fucking patriot. Brandon Gill. This, when you talk about you want to destroy the Republican Party, this is the Republican Party. Yeah, the Republican Party's lots of bad stuff. It's also people like fucking Brandon Gill and Eric Schmidt and Andy Ogles and Tim Burchett. There are some absolute monumental patriots in the Republican Party, and they need more support, not less. Congress can be incredibly useless, generally speaking. This is what I want my congressmen spending their time on. Absolutely drag these bitches through the mud. Force them. A Clockwork Orange style. Force them to look at these things. Force them to defend them in public. 5.8 million views on X so far. Then, that one, I understand that one was painful. Maybe I should have given a little trigger warning before that. This one is also going to be painful, but in a in a different sort of a way.
When climate change is flooding our streets, poisoning our air, driving up healthcare and disaster costs, how can the EPA justify abandoning that duty to protect Americans to appease polluters under the false flag of economic growth?
Following the law, Section 202 of the Clean Air Act, where does it say anything about fighting global climate change?
What is that?
Loper-Bright, Supreme Court case. You familiar with it?
No, I maybe others are. I'm not, but let me ask
But that's really important. As a member of Congress, Loper-Bright says that we, as an agency, don't have the authority to get creative. If Section 202 of the Clean Air Act...
No, but you don't have, excuse me, you do not have the right to say
actually
climate
answering your
change does not exist, that it's a hoax, and that's where this administration
I
is
understand
coming
you're
from.
upset that you don't know what Loper-Bright is. Do you know what the major policies doctrine is?
I'm upset because...
You know what the major policies doctrine is?
You know what, let me just
You're a
say
member
this
of
to you.
Congress. You should know.
Well, you have moved from someone who defended the environment to all of a sudden...
I'm very defensive about not knowing the two biggest landmark Supreme Court cases of the last year with regards to your question.
You are very defensive about changing your policy and your positions with regard to the environment.
Okay.
Now, you just tell
Do you want me to tell you what the two biggest Supreme Court cases are of the last few years?
This is what I want you
Michigan
to tell
versus
me.
EPA?
Whoa.
West Virginia versus EPA?
You know, you're here because you need money from us. So halt for the second and wait for the questions and answer the questions.
Well, I answered your question,
No, you
and you didn't like my answer because you don't know what Loper-Bright is.
Look at this lady up here. Watch her.
And answer the question.
Well, I answered your question, and you didn't like my answer because you don't know what Loper-Bright is, because you don't know what the major policies doctrine is, because you're asking me about Section 202 of the Clean Air Act, and you don't read it. You don't know what it says.
Listen, and what you want to do is to deny.
No, I actually read the law. I do my homework.
Really?
You're just somebody who likes to have the microphone on. You know what I have to do? I read the law. I read the Supreme Court cases.
And I would say
no, what you should do for your constituents is actually read statute.
The budget is at real risk.
Read your Supreme Court.
This is the Appropriations Committee.
Oh,
you come here.
You care about science? Now you're threatening to defund it?
Oh my God! No, you don't.
Because you don't know what Loper-Bright is. Because you don't know what the major policies doctrine is. Your message to our folks at the EPA is that you want to defund us.
I don't have to listen to this BS.
BS. You think I made up these cases?
Yeah, I think you have made up.
I made up Loper-Bright. I made up West Virginia versus EPA. I made up Michigan versus EPA.
Woe is right. What are you doing? Why are you helping polluters?
Beautiful. Beautiful. You care about science and now you want to defund it? Incredible. Just beautiful. Extraordinary work. Lee Zeldin, a patriot, man. He says nothing infuriates an uninformed congressional Dem more than when they realize they voluntarily triggered a debate with someone who actually knows what they're talking about, reads federal statute, and adheres to Supreme Court precedent. Today's self-implosion by Rosa DeLauro was quite remarkable to witness. Without apology or regret, I will always adhere to the best available reading of federal statute pursuant to the U.S. Supreme Court decision in Loper-Bright. God, I love it! I love it! When our guys get to justifiably occupy the moral high ground against them and just rub it in their faces. Okay, let's finish off here with some I was going to say finish off with some important white pills. This whole freaking episode has been important white pills. Look at this. Nashville housing supply is skyrocketing, with the number of homes on the market spiking to nearly 10,000 in March of 2026. That's 60% above normal and the highest inventory in nearly a decade. Home values are now dropping year over year across many corners of the Nashville housing market in response, with sales volumes at their lowest level in 10 plus years. This is ultimately good news for local buyers in Nashville. The market has flipped in your favor, and 2026 is a good time to negotiate a discount. Download our app to search data for your zip, reventure.app/mobile. I just got to highlight this. The guy who posted this, say his name out loud. Nick Gurley. Nickerly. Incredible. I had to check to see if this was a fake account, like a parody account or something. The dude's name is Nickerly. Nope, it's real. He is the guy who founded reventure.app. And then this, massive housing deflation across many markets, particularly those in the South and the Sun Belt states, where net negative migration is the most pronounced. In Dallas, renting a home hasn't been this affordable since 2008. This is Dallas, Texas, single-family rent-to-income ratios. starting from 2008. Look at how it skyrocketed during and after COVID, and look how fast it has plummeted. There was another, I thought I had one more on this subject. Hold on just a second here. Housing prices collapsing. Yeah, this one here. I don't know how this one wound up outside the stack. But this one is... Yeah, okay, here. Real inflation-adjusted home prices are down 4% in Dallas, Phoenix, Seattle, Tampa, and Denver. This is the home price index, real inflation-adjusted 12-month house price change. Now, it's up in Chicago and New York by 3%. It's up in Cleveland by 2%, flat in Minneapolis, and then it's down in Charlotte, Boston, the United States overall, San Diego, Miami, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Portland, Las Vegas, Dallas, Phoenix, Seattle, Tampa, and Denver. Now, I have something that I'll include in tomorrow's show about population, about like migration patterns. And what's happening is that the coasts, so you're getting immigration enforcement actions, pulling people from a lot of these specific locations. Then you have coastal flight into the Midwest, which is basically by default going from blue to red. Now, part of what this does is it causes you get a little bit of more lib influence in the red states, so everything gets a little bit more purple, but it does mean withdrawing congressional representation, funding, all sorts of downstream effects on the key liberal power centers being pulled into the center of the country. But overall, home prices are down and dropping. We're actually entering a deflationary environment, generally speaking. Surging consumer confidence. Here's some numbers about consumer confidence coming in ahead of expectation.
Indeed, we're looking for our April read on consumer confidence. The headline number expected to be under 90. It comes in stronger than expected. 92.8 is the new reading for April, and that follows an upward revision from 91.8 to 92.2. 92.8 is the high watermark of the year. You have to go back to the last month of 2025 to find a higher number. 123.8 present situation. That's over 3 points higher than expected, and sequentially a bit higher than our last look. 123.8 would be the highest level going back to the November read of last year. And finally, what are we looking at ahead? Expectations. 72.2, we are looking for a number around 69. 72.2 will be the best read since February of 72.6.
This guy here says there is disconnect between the mainstream media, oil at $100 OMG, and the U.S. price at the pump, which is about 85 cents below peak Biden. And tax cuts are filtering through, consumer confidence, solid employment, stocks at record highs. If you're listening to the mainstream press, you're going to get lots of panicking, which is why all the panicans are constantly fucking panicking. But these things are happening. It takes time. But the deportations, the trade deals, all the stuff that Trump has been doing, it's taking time to filter through, but it's beginning to pay off, and it will continue to pay off. Slutty Milk says, the DOJ indicted the people who attacked Savannah Hernandez. Good grief, they are dropping these things like crazy now. He also says the apartment unit that I'm moving out of is now priced lower than it was when I moved in 2021, despite inflation since then. We're entering, our lease is up in August, I think, and we got a good relationship with our landlords. I don't know if we're necessarily going to try to get our rent lowered, but we would have a case for it. We're starting to enter an environment here where you can legitimately talk about renewing a lease at a lower rate. It's probably going to be harder when you're renewing a lease, but you can go from one to another, and you could probably get better price per square foot depending on where you're at. Kate said, I've said this before, you're going to see housing become more affordable at greater rates in red states than in blue states. In blue states, as they try to act more defining its deportation efforts, the rate of deportations will be slower, and therefore the housing market will take longer to correct. We'll need to see in 2 years how this goes down. Scott Bessent has talked about this, how you're going to see things get more affordable in red states much more quickly than it happens in blue states, which is going to drive more flight from blue states to red states, which will have a purpling effect on the red states, which is why the people who live in the red states need to be getting active in their local communities now to ensure that you have leadership people in position ahead of time to mute that potential purpling effect that comes from the libs fleeing the environments that they destroyed and seeking out new environments to destroy. Kate also said what's really going to move the needle is Trump implementing citizen verification requirements for banks, which I think Trump will carry out sometime this summer. Yeah, almost certainly. Yeah, the time to buy is coming, gents, says T-Con. Hold! Boys, hold! The time to buy is coming. And then shout out Raymond Harmon. Raymond Harmon says, we have the lithium and folks are blackpilling. Doug Burgum says, USGS has found that the Appalachian region of the U.S. contains enough lithium to replace 328 years of imports. It's the meme. It's literally the meme about how, oh, we're almost out of this key resource. And then suddenly some random farmer in the United States discovers that he's sitting on top of the largest resource in the entire world. God bless America. Thanks to world-leading mineral science, permitting reform, and renewed investment in domestic mining, POTUS has reclaimed America's mineral independence. From bedrock to batteries, lithium in the Appalachians, a geologic assessment, what it means for U.S. supply. A new USGS assessment estimates that the Appalachian region of the eastern U.S. contains 2.3 million metric tons of undiscovered, economically recoverable lithium, enough to replace 328 years of U.S. imports. The southern Appalachians hold 1.4 million metric tons, concentrated in the Carolinas, and the northern Appalachians hold 900,000 metric tons, concentrated in western Maine. The lithium is present within pegmatites, large-grained igneous rocks similar to granite. It says the height is proportional to the estimated amount. So in Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont, you have the most, and this probably has to do with accessibility. Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and New York have a bunch, and then Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware have a bunch as well. Crazy how this keeps happening. Just keeps happening. It's almost like God loves America and has blessed us with abundant resources. We just need to be able to access them. I'm trying to figure out why Ryan Isaac's thing got AI modded here. He says, check out Dion Talk Financial Freedom for How to Binder Strategy Your Landlord. Almost insufferable liberal, but great approach to raising rents can be used by tenants in a decreasing rent market. Interesting. What is that? Dion Talk Financial Freedom Binder Strategy. I'm going to make a note of this. Okay, yeah, there, I got something. Thanks for the tip. And then the very last thing that I have today for you guys is, what a way to round off a great and extraordinary lab. How about a little bit of John Tent? Doyum, rise up!
What these people tell me and why they get so mad at me on the internet all of the time is they tell me, why are you trying to stop me from trying to get the administration to work better? And it's like, dude, I've never said that, not one time. What I am arguing for is not even just something that I think would be better in terms of like morality or, I don't know, diligence or just do. I'm arguing in terms of practicality, which ostensibly is what you're arguing for also. People talk about, we want the Trump administration to be doing better. I suggest perhaps you should make good-hearted criticism when necessary, engage in good faith. Certainly do not align yourself with the stated enemies of the Trump administration who keep trying to kill it.
Thank you, Emperor Atreides.
And they say, well, actually, I just want to call him a pedophile, rapist, traitor, and all this other stuff. So it's like, okay, if the retard right says that Donald Trump is a traitor and a pedophile, then you have the left who says, so true, but have you considered that he's also a rapist? Like, the difference between those kinds of ecosystems are not significant enough that they will not combine, right? So it's not even just that you have a nuance. It's this one thing, which is broadly speaking anti-Trump. And everybody agrees with it, and they all have their own little reasons for it. And despite those differences, which, again, I think are ultimately insignificant because they all export the same result, which is trying to harm the political success of Donald Trump, trying to get him killed, trying to get his supporters killed, his capos killed. It's all the same thing. So that's why I don't buy it when these people are like, dude, we just want you to be better, man. We're criticizing you from the right. It's just because we are more base than you. We just want you to do better, dude. That's why I keep calling you an Israeli slave, pedophile, traitor. I just want what's best for you. And it's like, no, if you're going to insult integrity, clearly we're not on the same page. There's nothing I could do to convince you of my intention, of my...
What I have to say to those retard right faggots?
No thanks, irrelevant pervert.
My intended efficacy, none of that, because you've already decided in your mind that I am an Israeli slave pedophile. So what are we even doing? That is why these people find themselves so comfortable with the left. If they were actually worried about the right being more effective, President Trump being more effective, they would be sitting on our side and they would have their arms crossed and they would say, dude, like, this is kind of stupid. This is not what I signed up for. But you would never waltz over to the opposing bleachers and say, I'm mad because they didn't do 5% of what I wanted, so I'm going to be over here with you guys who do 0% of what I want and actually do worse. You do anti what I want because you want to get me killed and certainly are not going to have mercy on me when you get back in power, which ultimately I am assisting with. This does not compute because it's not supposed to. It is retarded. Hence, colloquially, the retard right.
Absolute banger. He says... Literally the case, by the way, a rational person would never leave the side giving him 70% of what he wants to go sit with the people giving him 0% of what he wants. So what's the explanation? The explanation, as he delineated there, is they are, unfortunately, retarded. And God bless Glenn Beck for ensuring that he is contractually obligated to present to us, at least thrice weekly, our designated allotment of John Tent. Make sure that you guys are subscribed to John Doyle and you are consuming your obligatory requirement of John Tent every week. And remember to water your foid. That's all I've got for you guys today. The Lab has drawn to a close, but don't worry, I will be back tomorrow with more fantastic content, I'm sure. Thank you to all of you guys for showing up in the chat, for entertaining me, for providing valuable contributions to the show, for contributing to the financial cause of the Ericssons. Hopefully we will be able to produce more Cardinal Direction Ericssons here in the near future. I appreciate all of you guys contributing to that cause. Reminder that you can do that anytime, day of night. There is Buy Me a Coffee. There is the Streamlabs tips link. There is tips.kingpill.com. It will get it to me. I just won't be able to play the alert for you. I did see you, Caredwin, by the way. And, Cash App and Venmo as well, at King Pill. Please do remember to pay your white pill prescription fees. Tip your streamer. Little value for value here. I show up and give you guys hours of white pills and entertainment. And you guys respond by giving me American dollars or magical internet money. I appreciate every single one of you guys. I'll be back here tomorrow for another episode of the Astrolab, rounded off with a bunch of MAGA cocks in the chat. And I will leave you with Hulk.
When they took a shot at my hero, and they tried to kill the next president of the United States, enough was enough. And I said, let Trump-a-mania